Hi, good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Great to see everybody in the live stream. We got 13 people watching with 10 likes. Thank you for hitting that like button when you come in. Hitting that thumbs up gets the algorithm to pick up the video, spread it around for more people to join in, and it's a lot more fun when we have more comments taking place. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how a 9-to-5 job just doesn't cut it anymore. And it's actually going to guarantee that you're going to face inequality when it comes to the economy and the ability to acquire what it is that we feel that we need in our lives to have a decent living. Now, when I think about the 9-to-5 job and how it just doesn't cut it anymore, I think about the Cantillon effect, and I think about some of the things that Richard Cantillon was talking about in his essay. Now, in his essay, he had this to say, and I think it's really makes a lot of sense once you kind of hear through it. And he says this: when the abundant money raises products to honest prices, the inhabitants eagerly work to acquire them, although they do not show the same eagerness to acquire food and merchandise beyond what is needed for their maintenance. Now, he recognized this hundreds of years ago. Like hundreds of years ago, he recognized that people will eagerly work to acquire what it is that they need in their life, but after that, they don't show the same eagerness. That they essentially find what it is that they need and are satisfied with that, but the want, the drive, the excitement, the ability to go acquire more doesn't seem to be so focused in on their daily tasks beyond that what it is that maintains their living. So I think about it in today's standards. Like a lot of times people look back on the past and they say, hey, a 9-to-5 job produced so much more than it does now. A single income could have a wife and kids and house and car and, retirement and vacations and all that other stuff, and it was all done off of a single man's income. And we think about what was going on within the economy at the time, and it was a far different experience than what we are having today. See, back in the day, we were abundant. We were flush with business activity that was from production of merchandise and quality things that was being spread around the world. This increase in production and savings is really what gave us the ability to have that single income in that way of life that we had experienced back in the day. Now today, that isn't the case. People are not working in a way that provides the value to the rest of the world like it once had. So now we experience something much different, and that is the massive inequality that takes place because of the way that the new money comes in. See, once you understand how it is that the new money comes in and separates the rich from the poor, then you'll know that there is really no other way that the direction of the inequality growth is going to go other than just getting deeper and wider. If you have any other direction to it, you will have pain and misery for all, and nobody will ask for that experience coming from the administrations. They will ask the administrations to do something about it. Every politician will guarantee that they'll do something about it. And the problem with doing something about it is that they are going to spend their way into more inequality, because it's the new money that's coming in that's really driving it. So now when we think about it in the way that Cantillon was describing it from back in the day, we know that we can do something about it for ourselves. See, if we have a 9-to-5 job, you can maintain your life. You're going to be able to acquire what it is that you need. But if you are going to have anything beyond that, you're going to have to figure out a way to get new income, more income, side hustles, business activities. Things that are beyond what it is that the 9-to-5 job produces, because the 9-to-5 job produces nothing more than a paycheck to paycheck living. Just look at some of the links I leave down in the description. That's exactly what Bank of America is witnessing now within their studies, is an increasing amount of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Well, that's not a surprise. When you have more injection of money coming into the system, you're going to have more inequality. And the more inequality that takes place is going to show that we have a broader amount of people, there we go, a broader amount of people who are now facing this inequality crisis as the new money continues to pour in. This is the only direction it can go. So understanding that now gives you the ability to do something. See, once you have that understanding that you have to do beyond more beyond what it is that everybody else is doing. And really, in this day and age, it's not that hard to do. There are so many different ways of making money. And so once you have made some extra money, whatever that's supposed to mean, the money beyond what it is that you already are earning, you will have the ability to save. So now that's the only way to do it, is to increase your income or lower your cost. And if you are at the bare minimum, then you need to increase your income. So I think to myself, well, how many people out there drive new cars? How many people out there have subscriptions to, streaming services and whatever it is that's out there? All these little payments that people make, and even bigger payments when you think of new cars. This is what really holds them back from being able to get on the other side of that wedge. So people ask me all the time, what am I supposed to do about it? Well, if you understood the Cantillon effect, you're going to understand that the move into luxuries is probably what's going to cause you pain and misery. I mean, that's what causes pain and misery within the economy, is the moment that people start moving into the luxurious experiences, the luxurious items, they start driving out the domestic manufacturing. They start increasing the foreign production that's moving into that particular area. And once you understand that, once you recognize it, you start doing something about it that's going to be different from everybody else out there. Understanding that you need to keep your expenses as low as possible, because the move into luxuries itself is what's going to cause the pain and misery down the road. Not only for you, but for the broader economy, as everybody else is doing it. And they create that problem of domestic manufacturing not being able to compete with the foreign production. Right? How are we into this? 10 minutes. Let's read some of these questions here. We got all-nighter. A 9 to 5 has become the minimum. The minimum has become status quo. Got to do more than the average, then some, to be better than the average. That's right. I mean, that's all that it really comes down to, it is that if everybody else is looking at it and saying, hey, my 9 to 5 job isn't cutting it anymore, then you know that it's just not going to work. There's nothing they can do to change that. Once you understand that you have to have a 9 to 5 job and then some, then you'll start to recognize that, man, yeah, I can save some of this money. Yeah, I can cut out some of those expenses. But people who are living paycheck to paycheck generally say something of the nature is just like, man, I don't really live that extravagant of a life. I live a meager life, right? But then they drive newer cars. They go out on, traveling vacations. They go, experience things that are the idea of like, I don't want to miss out, like the fear of missing out kind of thing, You only live once. Kevin from Lakeland, Florida. It's great to see you, man. That's correct. Capitalism, inequality. Karl Marx. It's up to you to remove you out of social economics. Huh. I mean, I think about. Oh, wow, I actually got you live. Hi, Simon. Hey, well, great to see you. Candy Stuffed Corpse. I love the name. Yeah, talking about that, you think about it. If you were to have a society that was doing really well with production and savings, right? You're like kicking ass, you're doing, you're producing all the world's greatest stuff, you're getting it out there, and you recognize the Cantillon effect taking place. You're like, oh man, the people's way of life, that's getting really good. Like they have a best standard of living than the entire globe has. And it's due to all this production and savings that's taken place. And now you're seeing the foreign production start to move in. You're seeing the domestic manufacturers having a hard time competing. Now, at this point, right, if you recognize this as, let's call it like, the real power out there, right? The like the New World Order kind of power. Now, if you were going to try and stop this, you got to, like, a society is like, oh man, they're really growing. They're like producing their savings. They're doing really good. And there's a problem that's going to end up taking place in which that they are going to lose this manufacturing base, and it's going to end up being lost to foreign production that's going on out there. And the reason why it's going to get lost is because these people's standard of living keeps rising. But maybe if we put a boot on those people and say, nah, right, you're limited to how much you can earn. And in fact, anything beyond that is going to be part of the government itself, be part of the state, right? That way we can redistribute it properly for everybody to be successful together. Because if we let you actually move into luxuries, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to destroy the manufacturing, and you're going to start allowing the foreign production to come in. And that's the problem that we're going to face. So you can't move into luxuries. We got to stifle that from taking place, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So now here you have a society that says, well, we're a free market, free people, free capitalism, can't really do that, not supposed to anyway. So what are you going to do? Well, you got to let it go, right? So that means if you just let it go for what it is, then you're going to end up finding a position in which that all this move into luxuries that starts bringing in the foreign production and exporting all the domestic manufacturing is going to find a moment in which that you have to relinquish the gold, because your standard of living is just going to require it. The foreign production comes in and the gold leaves. And so the United States was going to be facing this exact same thing, because this is what happens for hundreds of years prior to the United States. I mean, this thing was, when Cantillon was talking, there was no real United States. They knew of the Americas, but they didn't know, there was no like United States or anything like that. It was, he wrote this thing 200 something years ago. And so when we think about like what it is that was taking place here in the United States, when we had that foreign production start to move in and the domestic manufacturing leaving, and the powers that be know that gold is going to go. It's going to have to get redistributed back out there to the rest of the world. And the only way to prevent that from really happening is to give them the ability to do transactions that is outside of the gold system. And that's where the fiat currency came in. They were like, hey, you don't really want all these crashes, these business cycles. You want to be able to do transactions. Here's a currency that you can use that's, just about as good as gold. You can exchange it for gold. Yeah. Why not? Makes it easy. The rest of the world was just like, hell, what else are we going to do? It's exchangeable for gold. It's just like using gold, only it's paper. It makes it real fast and easy to do transactions with other nations. Why not do it? And so the United States was able to start issuing out that fiat currency, and it was being accepted. It didn't have, the people didn't have to at the time. They could have said, hell no, I want the physical. Right? But they didn't say that at the time. They were like, no, we want to do transactions. And so the United States was just like, well, man, I guess we can do this. Yeah. And it wasn't like a guess. They knew what was going to happen. They knew exactly how it was going to go down. They talked about it intensely at the Federal Reserve back in the 30s. I've been trying to find the documents that I had read long ago on this topic. They had a nice congressional hearing between the Federal Reserve and Congress, and it was like they were basically saying, the Federal Reserve, you are going to be monetizing the debt, right? And the Fed was just like, oh no, we would never ever get to a point where we would be monetizing the debt. That would be terrible. Here we are. They got a balance sheet of $9 trillion or whatever, and most of it's held in U.S. government debt. There was no way that they were not going to be moving into a position in which that they would monetize the debt. But at the time, they weren't saying that. They were just saying, oh no, we're just going to have this elastic money supply. So when the times come where the concentration of gold is now depleting the ability to have economic activity out there because of that concentration of gold going into the hands of a few because of the business activity that was happening, they would expand the money supply to keep that hot economy loaded with plenty of currency to continue to operate. And when things slowed down, they were going to pull that money back out of the system. And this was the whole idea of the Federal Reserve and what they were sold on. Well, that moved from going from business cycle now to debt cycles. And here we have these horrible debt cycles that are taking place that forces the whole system into ever expansionary currency or else we have a massive depressionary effect that comes from it, which really should take place, but nobody's going to ask for it. So it's going to be expansionary, and there's going to be more inequality that comes from it. All right, man, I'm really babbling this morning. We got 151 people watching with 36 likes. I guess you guys aren't really liking this video that much. Exactly, Yui. Nobody stopped fiat currency even back when there was supposed unity in America. That's right. See, like, I mean, people knew it back in the day. It wasn't right, but they didn't have any other choice, right? They were like, okay, well, I want to work. I want to eat. I want to, do transactions. And so that's what they did. Yeah, and they accepted it. And even like back in the day, I just don't think people really took into consideration what it was that was changing. Like, really, the money has changed so many times. I've done videos on this where I show three different bills, three different paper currencies. One of them's a U.S. Treasury note issued from the U.S. Treasury, not the Federal Reserve note. I got a Federal Reserve note, and I got a silver certificate. And now what's interesting about it is the Federal Reserve note that I show in this little video is the older of the notes, then the U.S. Treasury note, and then the silver certificate. All right, so all three of these particular bills, these forms of currency, were all in circulation at the exact same time. People were using them in the exact same fashion, and I doubt anybody really at the time was taking into consideration on which one of those they had. Whether it was a silver certificate or a Federal Reserve note or a U.S. Treasury note, to them it didn't matter. It was all about doing business. And so now, like even today, my wife found inside of a stash of quarters that we have, she has a little pouch of quarters that she carries around, and in there was a silver quarter from 1962. And even today, you can still find these silver quarters from back in the day. And I love it when they pop up because people don't recognize them. They don't know that there's value behind it. They just look at an old quarter and don't realize that there was a time in which that there was silver within this money, especially the younger generation. Some of them had no idea at all. And so yet today you can find, silver within our change left over from the day when we actually had a commodity-backed currency that limited government from being able to spend recklessly. But those days are now gone, right? All right, thank you for hitting that like button. Keep going with it. Oh, like a deer running through the backyard. Will gold and silver protect you from inequality? I don't know if it'll necessarily protect you from inequality. If you want to, here, let's talk about protecting yourself from inequality, because I think that's a really good question. It will protect you from a third-party claim, and I think that's the best way to look at it. And so if you put your money towards stocks, if you put it towards, I don't know, bonds or whatever, just anything out there that is not cash, right? Because cash is trash, right? You don't want cash is bad. Don't like that stuff, right? Okay, so you're going to get out of cash. You're going to move into something. Well, when you move into something, you're moving into what is going to be a third-party claim, no matter what it is, really, if you think about it. Even if you're moving into real estate, you're still going into the idea that there is going to be protection from the government for property rights and stuff like that. So you're still going to have this third-party claim, and if you're ever going to try and pull the value out of it, it's going to generally go through some sort of financial instrument, like a banking system or something of that nature. All right, so the only way to really protect yourself from that third party is to have something physical in your hand, physical items. And really, to me, there's no better physical item than gold and silver, and more so in the silver, because of how easy you can liquidate that stuff. And now what I mean by liquidate it is just sell it, right? Sell it for cash. Now, if you have a big old gold coin, you have to go to somebody who has a lot of money, because it's like $2,700, if that's what you're really looking for, is going to be just a handful of people who are going to be able to pop off with $2,700 and trade it for a gold coin. Like, you have to find somebody who's actually interested in buying gold. Now, silver coin, on the other hand, you might have a better chance of it. You take a silver eagle, you go down to the bar and you say, hey, I would sell you this thing for $30, 35, whatever spot price is, even less than that if you're really trying to get some gas or something like that for your vehicle. But you go with a silver coin, a silver eagle, and you go down to the coin store, you go down to the pawn shop, you go down to the the jeweler or whatever, like you're going to find places where people would be like, okay, yeah, I might give you spot price for that, and it'd be very easy transaction to take place. Gold, on the other hand, like some of those facilities might do it for you, but then even if you can't go to one of those places, just going down to the local bar and just saying, hey, look, I got the Silver Eagle, I need some gas, I'm all out of gas, check it out, it's the real deal, and somebody, most likely, if you go to a few bars, somebody's probably going to give you some money for it, right? So that's why I look at silver as a protector from the third party claim, is because it's in your possession. It's away from all that stuff out there. Now, does it protect you from inequality? No, I don't necessarily think so, because then you're actually basing it off of the idea that it's going to go up in value, right? Which then puts it into this speculation that you are going to, again, like have the greater fool theory, like somebody's going to pay a higher price for it than you did. And I'm not trying to like insult anybody. That is what it's said. That's how they phrase it inside of the investment community, right? It's called the greater fool theory, in which that you buy something with the anticipation that somebody's going to pay a higher price for it. Now, that's more like what I think about inside of like Beanie Babies or Tulip Mania or something of that nature. When it comes to gold and silver, this is industrial use, investment purposes, all kinds of other things that are beyond that of just speculation. People really do want this and need it for building, you know, products, using it for whatever instruments that they are building. They need this stuff, right? So it's not like it's just some sort of speculation asset. There's an actual commodity there that does have investment purposes to it when you think about it in the future demand for it. Okay, so inequality, does it protect you? Yeah, in that way, I guess it could if it goes up in value and you sold it into the future. But does that really protect you from inequality? Nah, yeah, no, right? Because what it is it's going to protect you for a moment in time. Like to me, protecting you from inequality means that you are not on the other side of the wedge. You're on the top side. And the only way to do that is to understand that your 9 to 5 job isn't going to cut it, and there's no administration that's going to do it for you. So now you need to do it, which means that you need to start a business, or you need to find a side hustle, right? You need to figure out a way to lower your expenses as much as possible. And by doing those two things, you're going to find the ability to start saving. Once you start saving, then you will have the ability to start investing into the things that are going to be growing assets, dividend paying assets, rental paying assets, more business type assets. These are the type of things that you need to move into in order to be on the other side of the wedge with a constant ability to save. No move into luxuries. The luxury thing comes far later when you're super rich or whatever. Don't screw around with luxuries in the beginning, because that's going to screw you up. Everything has to happen in the idea that you are going to get into a savings mindset, asset producing, or income producing assets, or increasing business type activities, something of that nature. Not saying, hey, I need a 9 to 5 job that pays me a lot of money and I need to beg my boss for more money, because no matter how much he pays you, there's only a certain amount of hours in a day that you can work. And so you're limited to those amount of hours in a day. You need to find something beyond that. Go ahead and get the 9 to 5 job. It's a great way to pay your bills. That's what I do. Right? 9 to 5 job pays the bills, and don't expect it to do any more than that. Like, if I didn't have my side hustles, I would not be able to do this. I would not be able to live paycheck to paycheck. I would be going the other way. Right? Because I live in an expensive area. I bought what is an expensive home. Right? I mean, it shouldn't be, considering the style of home it is, right? But it's in an expensive area. The asset has, the value of the asset has gone up, so I'm not like underwater or anything on it. I have been building up a stock portfolio, building up Bitcoin portfolio, got my, ideas of what it is that I'm doing for income, using YouTube, doing, selling whatever, and this is how you do it. This is how you get on the other side of the wedge. The particular asset of silver alone or gold alone, I mean, that's a position, but it's not the entirety. You need far more than just that. I work 9 to 5 and make about $3,000 after taxes on average every 2 weeks. My mortgage is under 28% of my total monthly income, including my wife's. We take 2 to 3 vacations a year. Of course, it can be done. Yeah, of course it can. Like, but that's just the thing. You're aware of it, and most people live paycheck to paycheck are not. Like, they have so many more expenses, and don't save first. Like when I get paid, I almost immediately, soon as I get some money from any kind of pay, I almost immediately put it into one of the assets out there, whether it's Bitcoin or the stock portfolio, or acquiring silver, or moving it into cash, because there is a cash position in which that I try to maintain, that's for either emergency purposes or for the potential of buying opportunities, but it's meant for that purpose. So holding on to that and not spending it on silly stuff. I also still have leftover money to deposit into the compounding interest account. See, you know. Let's see here. Let's cruise down to the bottom. All right. All-nighter. I took it last year. They were doing paper test. They switched to computer only test in 2014. Got lucky. Went and test are way easier. You guys I love it when you guys have conversations in here. Okay, UE is another example of self-taught working man. That's why I like his channel so much. Well, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, and this is, because here's the thing, guys. Like, I didn't study economics from any classroom, from any single economist out there, from any like course or anything like that. I literally just broke it all down bit by bit. Just what is. I would constantly Google that. Like, what is fractional reserve banking? What is, whatever, mortgage-backed securities, what is? And by doing that, I was able to pick up a lot of information from a lot of different people. And I found that most of the time people take on a base theory and then they're stuck to that base theory, right? Like they don't look at it any other way. They talk about how the other theories got it wrong, or how this one is screwed up because their theory is the right way to go. And if you notice, like, I don't have a theory of the way it should be. Right? Like, so many people are like, it should look like this, it should look like that, right? Or this is the reason why it's screwed up. I don't try and look at it like that. I try to look at it for what it really is. Like, hey, this is a problem, right? Okay, now that we got that out of the way, we know that our 9-to-5 job isn't going to cut it anymore. We have to have other incomes. How do we do that, right? And a lot of people think when they start a business, they think of, like, having a store with an open sign and a counter on the other side, and then there's something happening within there, whether it's a sale or a service, or and that's what they think a business is. And so they're like really kind of like, man, what can I do? And it's just like, you got to think way differently than that. Like, think about anything it is that you can do. One of the ideas, and I never got around to it, maybe we'll do it again here in a few months when the season kicks in for it, but a couple of years ago, I don't know, I guess it's going on a couple of years, a little over a year ago, I built a picnic table, and I can see it's right outside the window here. And I thought to myself, man, this thing was fairly easy to build. It didn't really cost that much. And I'm wondering, okay, how much could I sell this thing for? Because really, you can almost deliver it in pieces and assemble it at site, even if you didn't have like a truck to haul the whole thing, a truck or trailer or something like that. You might be able to break it down into pieces and just assemble it at the location, at the people's place. And so I'm thinking of this picnic table, and I'm like, okay, so it was about $100 in material, like $120 or something in the material for it. That's the hardware, the boards, and all that. And I thought, okay, so even if you didn't have any tools, what would you really need? You would need like a drill, and you need a saw. Now, most places have like a cheap power tool store. I don't want to name names, right? But they have like these cheap power tools that you can go and pick these things up for probably under $100. You could get all the power tools that you would need in order to assemble this thing. Probably even less than that. You could probably do it for like, less than $70. So here you are, like $200 into building this picnic table. Now you can either come up with $200, or you can take it out on a credit card. Right? And even if it was in, high interest credit card, you're only going to use it for just a few, right? For a couple of weeks. So using a credit card, buying the material, buying the power tools, and then selling this thing, like getting on Facebook and going to the marketplace and selling this thing, you can most likely get away with building like 2 or 3 of these things, and you would be up on your money, and then you would no longer use the credit card and use those power tools that you had initially purchased on credit, right? Using the credit card, building the tables, getting those things built, sold, and then like, I'm guessing probably after about the third one, you would be like, the profit that you would get from it would be able to buy the material, and you'd be able to take a profit off of it, and you would have a business that's up and running. Right? Now, that's like the most simplest form of it. Once you have that sort of mindset going, then that can be expanded into all kinds of things because it's all the same energy. It doesn't matter if it's this picnic table or if you're trying to sell, a 50, a 50 plot, building development or something like that. It's like, it's all the same. It's all the same energy. It's just a matter of getting into it. And so once you have done something as simple as that, which is very low risk, what, a couple $100 that you might end up, taking out on a credit card. If you can't sell it, how big, so what's the worst? You end up with a picnic table that you built and you got a little bit of credit card debt you have to pay. But ultimately, that's the kind of mindset, that's the sort of attitude that people need to take. And once they start taking on that, then it's going to move far beyond just that of a picnic table, right? Because the picnic table is just the initial spark of energy, right? Once you have that moving and that motivation going, it's going to move beyond that, and it's going to move into much bigger and broader things. All right. Harbor, no, I ain't gonna say it. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is. But if it's enough to get you a profit, right, that you really didn't have to spend that much money, like you can always upgrade into better tools, I'm just saying, getting the initial, and you only have to cut the boards to length, right? I mean, it can't be that hard. You can almost do it with a handsaw. You don't even need a power tool. All right. Stephen Van Meter is saying there's a crash coming. Do you think he is right? A crash coming in which way? In which way? Because I already feel that there's a crash in the housing market as we speak, considering the very limited amount of transactions that are happening, because that to me is the real crash. Like the crisis in housing is, I'm going to do a video on this when I talk about the next lumber report, because the lumber report is getting good. I mean, the inventory levels are just absolutely decimated. There's very few, like, there's very limited amount of inventory when it comes to the West Coast production, especially when it comes to the green lumber and going into the KD. 4-ply CDX is now moving over to like the East Coast. There's a lot of stuff happening within this industry. And if there is, again, like I say it all the time, but it hasn't happened yet, if there's any spark to the home builder demand, you are going to find prices just skyrocketing. And I'm just waiting for that moment to take place so I can do the video saying, okay, here it is, but it's not happened yet, right? I mean, it's just like it's all positioned for it. I hear like, oh, I'm just kind of rambling now. I forgot what I was initially going for. Oh, Stephen Van Meter, that's right. So when I think about like, all the promises that are coming from the future administrations out here, whether it's Trump or Harris or whatever, I don't even listen to either one of them right now because I just don't find that kind of importance going on. But that's just me personally. After one of these people are elected and we hear out what they're going to have to say, either one of them, it doesn't matter what happens. If any effort is put towards, if any kind of government effort is put towards building homes, you will absolutely see lumber just moonshot, right? It's like there's very little doubt in my mind. And the price of a new home, is going to skyrocket. Like there is no doubt in my mind. I don't care how much inventory they bring to it, because the problem that they're going to end up facing with it is that if any kind of government action takes place that starts to move money into production of homes, what they are going to find is that there is a limited amount of people out there who actually build homes. There's lots of labor, people who can assemble homes, but people who are contractors to build homes, there's very few of them out there because of the massive depletion of this particular industry over the last few years. All right, so there is people who can move into that business, who will move into that business, who will become that of which it is that is needed to fulfill the demand for them. But at this moment, the increase in movement of money going towards that particular industry is going to find a limited amount of people out there who are then going to demand a much higher price for it. So the input cost going into construction is going to go up just simply off of the limited amount of people who are actually producing that particular product at this time. Does that kind of, you see what I'm saying? As time goes on, then it will fill. Like people will move into that, right? They will start, creating the businesses in which that is what is seeking the demand from this extra money. Okay, so that's going to start increasing the input cost going into the production of the home. And then on top of that, if you have, again, a bunch of money moving into production and that starts ramping up, you have a limited supply of lumber out there. Right? Now, lumber is right now, I don't even know, like what, 20%, 25% of the cost of the building a home. I can't remember exactly what it is. But it will move up, or it's probably even less than that right now, but it will move up dramatically as we had seen back during the pandemic when it ran to its all-time highs. It became a significant input cost going into the production of a home. And so if the ramping up of production starts to take place during a time in which that you have a limited supply, then you're going to find that going into the production of a house, as far as the material itself, it's going to ramp up in cost, again, causing the input or causing that new production price to be elevated, not only from the labor side of things, from the limited amount of people who are doing that particular business, but then also coming from the material side of things, meaning that the new homes won't be falling in value, right? No matter how many they produce. That's the issue with it. Is just like as they ramp it up, saying, "Hey, we're gonna build a bunch of homes." It was just like, okay, well, you got a limited amount of people and a limited amount of stuff, so that's gonna go up in price. And so as you demand these homes get built, right, that increase in demand will then be hitting the limited supply-demand imbalances. Like, to me, this isn't hard to see. Not many people think about the inventory levels of lumber when they talk about this. Like all the, oh, well, they're just going to go out there and throw a bunch of money at production and they're just going to ramp up and you're going to see a ton of houses get built. And I'm like, really? Okay. Do you know how lumber is made? Yeah. Do you know how much demand for lumber is going to be needed during that time? Do you know how much mill curtailments and shutdowns and depletions and like permanent shutdowns taking place right now? So these two aren't going to jive. Right? And you're going to see a significant change of events. All right, back to Stephen Van Meter. I like Stephen Van Meter, but I haven't listened to him in a while, so I wouldn't know what his argument is. I would love to, give you my opinion on it, but I just don't know. All right. So that's the separation between the rich and the poor. New houses too expensive, and only the corporations will own them. No, I mean that's not. I mean, if you say that, then that's your belief, and that's what you're going to anticipate. Then that's the experience you'll get. Now, I don't believe that. I believe that each and every single one of us has the ability to then push out into the world useful, helpful energy that then will be rewarded back to you in the way that is just as much as you're giving. Okay. And now I know that sounds like crystal hippie shit or whatever. Fine. But it's the fact of the matter, right? I'm a dude who barely graduated high school. I don't have any business degrees. I don't have any like college degrees in any sort. I never took any courses, right? But I'm out here trying to figure out how it is that I can spread helpful, useful information out there and be rewarded somewhat for it. And with that, I'm able to move into property. Now, being a property owner or a capitalist, my other side of things is I'm trying to be the capitalist. I'm trying to show you how it is that I'm doing it. Now, you're going to have to do it differently. And now, if you have this belief that you cannot do it, or that it's only going to go to this certain group, and that's, a done deal, screw them, we're screwed, all that kind of attitude, that's exactly what it's going to do, because I lived that life as well. I mean, I did the exact same thing. I had a total belief that the New World Order was keeping me down, that there was no way that the average guy was ever going to have a chance of making it, that, everything was completely screwed up. I had that attitude, and yes, my world existed exactly like that. Totally. it delivered, and it will deliver to you too. So now if you take it on as like, man, this is heavy information. I understand that it's difficult. Yes, the new world order exists. Yes, these times are hard and I can't do it the way that my grandfather did, and that sucks. Okay, great. Now that we're over it, let's figure out what we need to do, because now that we have a 9 to 5 job that doesn't work, it sucks, right? A 9 to 5 job, even a good job, sucks. Now that we understand that, how is it that when we make some money? How do we get the energy of this picnic table to be manifested into our reality so that we can get some side hustles going, that we can now have some sort of extra income, extra, right? Beyond that of what it is that you were doing, right? I love the word extra money or extra income. It was like, what does that mean? Is extra? It was like, there's no such thing as extra. It's how much you're doing, right? Either you have it or you don't. And so when you start taking on that sort of attitude towards things, then, right, you'll find that the ability to move into property, the ability to buy stocks, the ability to get into business or do business deals is putting you on the other side of the wedge. Now, inequality isn't because somebody else's problem. It's because you have actually started doing something with your life, and now you are not on that bottom side of the wedge. You're on the other side. And people will look at you and say, hey, you're lucky. Right? Do you feel like you'll be lucky? Do you feel lucky for it? How do you pick stocks? Okay, so I'll tell you exactly what I picked, right? Now, I started off, the first stock that I had ever picked were precious metal miners. Right? It was through the M1 account, right? I barely used this account, but it's still active and I still check on it. And I bought a set of precious metal miners. Now, that was the very first one because I wanted to be in the precious metal space that was not the physical. Now, again, I kind of ignored that one since I did that, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. I then wanted to do an experiment with Bitcoin and the stock market. So what I did is I downloaded the Cash App, and in the Cash App, I started off with $50 in Bitcoin and $50 in the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. And then I bought another $50 worth of Bitcoin, and I bought the the Vanguard ETF Russell 1000 Growth Stock. I then bought again $50 in Bitcoin, and and this is like maybe every week I was doing this, all right, once a week. And so it was kind of pricey. It was hard to do it. It was like, it was expensive. It was like, $400 I was committing to doing this little experiment of mine, which, for a lot of people are like, $400, dude, that ain't nothing, right? But for me, that was a lot at the time. It still is today, right? And so I bought it was the Russell 1000 total stock market, the Russell 1000 growth stock, the total stock market ETF. And then I bought Altria, which is, Anheuser, well, at the time it was Anheuser-Busch and Marlboro cigarettes. Now I think they sold off all their Anheuser-Busch stock. So it's mainly like a tobacco, and they get into other things as well, but it had a really high dividend yield to it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go for the dividend payment because I don't have any dividend paying stocks and I know a little bit about addiction. So, okay, fine. We'll buy into Altria. So I bought into Altria. It does not perform very well, that particular stock, but the dividend payments are pretty decent, on it. So it's kind of cool to see, getting paid to hold the stock. And considering how many dividend payments I've had off of it, it's done pretty well in my thought. Anyway, I then moved into Coinbase. Now, Coinbase happened to be the best position that I have ever taken on any kind of stock pick. It has moved up dramatically. I think I'm up like 140% or something on my Coinbase stock, and it's by far the biggest position that I hold within my portfolio now. And it also happens to be one of the least amount that I've actually invested anything into. I think I put like maybe, I don't know, $1,200 or something into Coinbase, and that position is well over like $3,000 now. And so Coinbase was a really good pick for me. And then I've just recently moved into ExxonMobil. So again, they get a little dividend yield off of that. And it's an energy stock, and, a friend had suggested it, a few months back, and I thought, yeah, I probably should take another position inside of this thing. So that's my entire like stock portfolio. And again, like, over the course of the last 4 years that I've been doing this, is it 3, 4 years, 4 years now? Um, the Bitcoin has done so much better than everything else, except for maybe Coinbase. I mean, Coinbase has done really well, but again, that's like a crypto kind of like a crypto position, considering that they're like a crypto bank. So, having that be like the best position, the best performing, the best out of everything. Like I have a lot of faith in buying into Bitcoin, not for any other reason than it doesn't seem to fail on me, right? Like everything else out there is questionable on how much it moves, on how far it goes. I asked Lynn Alden, how do I buy Bitcoin? She said dollar cost average for 4 years. You won't fail. She was so right about that, right? Like I just feel very comfortable putting $50 at whatever price towards Bitcoin and I have zero expectations of anything coming from the Bitcoin, which is like even better, right? Because if you have no expectations of it and and it does as well as that, it's just like it's meant to be, right? Anyway, that's what I do. All right, thanks, Simon. I'm not really here, but just showing up to say hi. Well, thanks, Brody. Thanks for being here, man. Or thanks for coming in and saying hi anyway. All right, American tobacco companies ended American growers. Uh, let's see. You guys are all talking stocks here. Miners are volatile. Yeah, I kind of agree. All right. Deja vu. So Dad always said there's no such thing as luck. He's right. Yeah, there's no such thing as luck, right? What you have is attention to intention minus importance. That's it. That's as simple as that, right? This is how I heard it. And if you pay attention to intention, right? Like you have something that you're intending, you pay attention to that, you put some effort towards it, let go of the importance of it, right? Like, how the outcome is supposed to be or how it's supposed to look or anything like that. That part is not important towards it. Then you're going to find that it just starts naturally occurring easily. I mean, it's not difficult, but it is like discipline. I think that's probably the difference within it, is that it's not difficult to do, but it is discipline, meaning that it's hard not to go out there and just screw it up. Like you chase excellence, then after you chase the excellence, you screw it up by going and chasing pleasure, and you unwind all the stuff that you did for chasing excellence. And that's really what it comes down to, right? Is that if you are chasing excellence and then go and chase more excellence and then avoid the pleasure that is not going to benefit your life. Like it's okay to go and cut loose every once in a while and say, no, I am doing this for the intent of cutting loose to enjoy. It's another thing to say, I got to go and party every single weekend and blast all my money away, drinking and gambling and doing whatever it is that you do, knowing that it's going to be a painful experience that comes from it. I mean, when you're doing good and when you're doing bad. And so by chasing that excellence, you can't really help but to find yourself in better position. You find yourself with better opportunities. You find yourself, just overall in life doing better from everything that's going on out there, because the world is nothing but abundance. But most people feel limited. It's just, and it's all an internal belief. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody on the outside. It all comes down to what it is that you're thinking and feeling. And that's hard for a lot of people to accept. And I mean, it was hard for me to accept, but I mean, I saw the truth of it within myself when I was living a very, like, I don't even know how to call it. It was just like, it was depressed. It was a depressed life. That's what it was. I was living, just barely cutting it, had nothing, broken everything, like nothing was good. And I looked at the world as if that's the case. And that's just the case for some people out there. And I just happen to be one of those people who have to live that way. And that's what I thought. I mean, it was just like, this is what I deserved, or something of that nature. And it took a mindset change to say, hey, life can be much better than this. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to do all these things that you are doing, and no, the world is not coming down to keep you from actually being successful, right? Once you accept it for yourself and just say, okay, yeah, I've been doing wrong, right? I'm going to do right from now on. And people think, okay, yeah, cool, man, I do right all the time. Do you? I mean, I have to actually question that sometimes. Because a lot of times people, I think, are manipulating the whole idea, saying, no, I deserve more than this and that right there. Right? You deserve more. That's a manipulation tactic. I should be getting more. Everything that I'm doing should have more to it. And I just don't look at it like that. I mean, everything that I've got, I mean, it's just like, wow, this is incredible. I never thought that I was going to get here. And to think that there could be more in the future, absolutely. I would love to see it. Do I expect it? Absolutely not. Sometimes I don't even know what there would be to expect. So, people expect, new cars and fancy houses and all trips and cool toys and all this other stuff. And like, yeah, I get jazzed up off the idea, but I don't really see much. Like, that's not something I think about. I don't like, that's not like, if that comes into my life, cool. But I don't have like any, and like, that's not where my attention or intention or any kind of focus is going. It was pretty salty in here for a while for it being a Saturday morning. All right, why does it seem like good? People are always broken, bad. People always rich. All right, why does it seem like good people are always broken, bad people are always rich? I don't know. I don't um I think like a lot of it comes down to like maybe just a jealousy thing. Like, because most people find themselves so limited in their life and they see so much abundance that other people are just flowing around them, and it seems so easy for them, and then they feel like literally jealous over that. And they're thinking, man, how come they can't share this? How, if they didn't have so much of that, there would be so much more for us. Like, I hear that kind of thing a lot. And to me, I'm thinking, well, I don't know what in the world it is that those people could possibly do to change how it is that you feel about yourself. And that's limiting you, because that's really what's going on there. It's not them depriving you, it's you depriving you. That's what's really happening. And most people just don't see it that way. They think, no, man, I work hard and my hard work should do this. Yeah, it should. I mean, we can all wish and hope and dream that it should, but it doesn't do it that way. So once you understand that it doesn't work, like your hard working 9 to 5 job sucks. Once you accept that, then you have to move into something else. You start moving into something else, and you find that you work hard at it and it's able to produce money, and you keep duplicating that and you're expanding that into other broader aspects of business. And next thing you know, you're so big and powerful of a business that you're hiring people and employing them, and you're thinking, yeah, I need to share my hard work and wealth with other people. I mean, is that like, don't you think like your work is already spreading the wealth by hiring people and giving them the opportunity to then provide for themselves as well? I mean, that's really where the mindset of a lot of these people are when it comes to having wealth in their own life. Yeah, they are doing things that benefits other people's lives. Most people look at it and say, "Oh man, you need to share." Yeah, and to me, it's just like, what a backwards, weird way of thinking about things. Like, poor people want to punish rich people for being rich. And I'm thinking, I want to be rich someday. I don't feel rich. If someday I was rich, I certainly don't want to be punished for that. And I don't want the ability to get rich or to become rich to be difficult. I want it to be easy. And by being easy is simply by changing the mindset of the way that you're thinking about things, saying that, no, I'm not deprived, I'm not limited, I am not, held down. I have opportunities. There's all kinds of it out there. All I can see is opportunity. I'm moving in that direction, and it starts becoming available to me. And then people look at you and they say, again, you're lucky. And it was just like, I don't get it. I mean, like, to me, it's becoming pretty obvious on why it is that most people end up living the way they do. It's because they just simply just don't think that they can do any better than they do. That's really what it comes down to. It's their own mindset. All right. Nothing I have bought has made me happy. Only love and helping people work. Owing love and helping people work. Yeah, Ron, I agree. Like, I'm not saying like I have money because I like not rich by any means, but I've hung out like, with some pretty rich people, and I don't know exactly what it is that the feeling of being rich is supposed to be like. Considering that there was a time in my life where all I just wanted was the ability to pay my bills. Like, that was it. Like, if I could pay my bills on time, that would make me feel rich. And I do that now. Like, I can pay my bills on time. Like, the garbage bill came in, I opened it up, I called and paid the bill. Like, no problem. There was a time in my life I would have been like, just put that on the stack with all the rest of them. Just, whatever. Right? That was my attitude towards it because I didn't have the money to pay it. Right? And to me, people who had the ability to pay their bills were rich. So, like, my mindset at the time, like, I didn't have like, hundreds of millions of dollar mindset of what it was that I would do if I had the ability to bring in money beyond that of my 9 to 5 job. That then gave me the ability to have a savings and the ability to do things like buy assets like stock portfolio, Bitcoin, or buy into a house or something of that nature. Like, none of that stuff I thought was being rich. Paying your bills on time, I thought was being rich. Right. So to me, like, all my efforts of what it was in my subconscious of what it is that I wanted as far as my life goes, I've caught it. Like, this is what I was shooting for. You know, I could do better. I know I could. I know there's a lot more opportunity out there. I know there's a lot that I could be doing with all this. Right. I know there's more. And again, why would I do that? Right? Why am I doing it? That's the motivation I have behind it. Am I going to take time away from my family? Didn't I do this so that I could spend more time with my family? Right? This is, again, you start becoming conflicted on what it is that you actually want for your life. I see people out there who have $100 million. They're like, man, I did this inside of, 15 years. I was able to build this up. And I'm like, man, you must have focused in on that and only that. Right? That's the only thing you did. And so now that you have that, was it worth it? Like, I mean, I know you can do anything you want, but I can kind of do it anywhere I want. Like, not really, but I mean, I could. And so I'm thinking, I mean, that might have been like what you really wanted in your life was to have this $100 million thing. But really, is this the life that you really wanted? Like, is that what you were really going for? Is this the experience that you wanted, was to be able to do that? If it was, man, awesome on you. But for a lot of people, they just want to be able to share good experiences with their family. And simple as that. Nothing too fancy, right? All right, moving on. Yui, what if you don't have a family? Many young men are single and have no kids. I mean, I get it, but I don't. Like, I know a lot of young men right now don't have the ambition to start a family. And if you don't have that, then I'm not sure what motivates you, right? Like, to me, my motivation comes from trying to do this, right? Trying to make this all come down. And I wonder, it's just like, would I really be trying as hard as I'm doing if it was just me? I mean, if that's the only thing I had, would I really feel like, going out there and doing the business and doing all that, for what kind of purpose would that solve, Um, or what kind of, I don't know, what kind of dream would that be? To me, I find that very difficult. And so without the motivation of my family behind it, I don't know why I would try. Like, I mean, I guess I could figure it out if I didn't have a family, but I mean, I don't, so it's hard for me to like even conceptualize that. And so I think deep down inside, most men probably would want a family. Like, it's kind of natural male instinctual want to procreate, right? To have kids. And I mean, I don't know why that feeling is there, right? But it's there, right? And for some men, I guess it's like really driven and they really want to have that experience. And so it's hard, especially in this day and age in which that it's difficult to partner up with people, especially when you have, a society that has become so luxurious that you can make it on your own. You don't need to partner up. See, there was a time when you had to partner up with people if you were going to make it. And that partnering up with people meant that you had to really trust them. And it meant that there was, a lot of like commitment and loyalty that was going to happen. But if you don't have to trust somebody to partner up to make a life, you can make it all on your own, then that connection, that ability to have that committed relationship and the ability to then progress through life in that committed relationship like that becomes very difficult. And so I can see how and why a lot of men are not necessarily starting that family, doing that traditional life anymore, because it's just like society doesn't really have a condition in which that can happen, right? And so I don't know what to say about that other than, really you have to be in the energy of wanting that in your life in order to find that to be a successful position to go towards. And when you have that sort of energy in life and you partner up with somebody who also shares that same energy, well, then you're going to find that you are going to be a very unique couple who are able to do things that are almost magical that other people just almost wish that they had in their life. But because, again, society doesn't condition our existence to be that of partnering up and trusting and committing and being loyal, right? Because that simply just kind of vanished away. It's very difficult to acquire that. But again, it's possible, right? And again, like, what is your motivation? I mean, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a family. Like, I don't know what my motivation for life would be. Let's see here. What is the new American dream? Then do you think it's still the same even though it's dead? Okay, you live the life you want to see, right? You live the life. I don't know what other people are doing out there, right? But I have a wife and I have kids and I have business and I have a job and I have, things that I've got going on. I'm doing my best to live out what it is that I feel that I want, right? And now some people might look at this as like, dude, you're trying to live out the American dream. Okay, whatever, right? I mean, I'm not trying to acquire some kind of position that has like, hey, it needs to look like this thing inside of this frame, right? This is what it needs to look like. That's too egotistical for me, and I'm trying to let that sort of behavior go. Right? Because that's the way I used to live. If it didn't look like this, it's wrong, right? That was my ego taking over, and having a big ego means that you're probably trying to manipulate the universe and the world around you to be in a condition that meets your approval. That's if it fails, right? It doesn't work that way. So somebody might look at me and say, hey, how are you acquiring the American dream? Is that what this is? I mean, because I didn't know. I mean, I'm just trying to have a house for my family that they can feel comfortable in, that's safe neighborhood, that's clean, and in an area that I have a network built in. That's what I'm trying for. Does it look like the American dream? Okay, cool. That's somebody else's opinion on it. To me, I wasn't going for an American dream. I'm just going for a life. And this is what it looks like, And it's hard. It's hard to do because it takes so much time and effort and energy going towards things beyond that of just having the 9-to-5 job, which also takes a lot out of me, right? It takes a lot of time. It's not necessarily stressful, but it can be, right? And so by having that on top of all the other things that you're doing, it becomes very difficult to find time to have the family, which was the whole purpose of doing it anyway. Have you read Viktor Frankl's books? Man's Search for Meaning. I think you would really like it. I haven't, but I got a few audible credits, so I might, that might be one I can look up. Man's Search for Meaning. All right. If 9-to-5 is not going to cut it anymore, looks like it's only OnlyFans, guys. Yeah, I don't know. Good luck with that. Actually, I had a friend talking about that the other day. I'm thinking, yeah, I know how hard it is to put out videos for money. Yeah. All right. I think the industrial age work week is fundamentally bad for humans. The industrial age work week? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like most people were like, man, I don't like working these, 40-hour weeks. And I'm thinking, yeah, work 40 hours a week plus another, 15, 16 more and side hustles and everything else going on. I don't know, 80 hours a week. Does that seem reasonable? I guess. And people were like, what? It was like, yeah, because you're going to work 40 hours a week plus you're going to go and work some more, right? I mean, because you're not going to sit there on the bottom side of the wedge thinking a 9 to 5 job is going to cut it. No way. Moving on. You're living the dream. We just become brainwashed into thinking the dream was a lifestyle of the rich and famous. I don't. I don't know, man. Like, is it brainwashing that's happened? Maybe. I mean, I guess so. They don't teach like. I don't think they teach people. I mean, I guess what is it? It's probably a matter of opinion. Like, what is economics to people? Is it to understand, things like what we talk about here a lot on this channel, like the Cantillon effect? Is it a matter of understanding that? I mean, that's my opinion on what it is that people should be focusing in on and thinking about for their own lives, and considering what's going on with inside of geopolitical events and stuff to understand how the Cantillon effect works, I think is very important. But that's my opinion on it. And I think other people who have taken in this opinion also find it helpful and useful within their day-to-day lives. But when it comes to educating the people out there or educating the younger generation, is that just my opinion? Or is it something that they really need to learn? I mean, or is it something that people should learn for themselves? To me, if everybody understood this information, we would not have governments looking the way they do right now. Like they simply would not be able to just function this way. But because most people don't understand it or know it, they put too much importance and blame on the government, which then gives them the power over, which is how it works. My brother started an OnlyFans. The leather Cheerio is in full pucker mode. What the hell? I don't know for other single people, but there sure seems to be a lot of women. With this economy going to the sex trade, I'm OnlyFans. Wow. That's what you guys talk about, huh? OnlyFans. I'm gonna send you a book, Yui. Well, thank you, Larry. I'll do my best, man. But I find reading more than 10 or 15 minutes very difficult. Like I find now I can get through a Fed speech all right. But even through those, when we do the live streams, you can hear by the time I'm done with it, it's like I'm stuttering really bad. I'm mispronouncing words. I can't read them right. It's just like everything is just starting to, kind of fall apart for me. And that was really one of the major struggles I had going through school was the reading disability. I mean, it was like it's not like I couldn't read the words, and it wasn't like I didn't know the definitions for them. It was that as I started reading comprehension became very difficult. Like I could sit there and just spit out the words as I was reading them, but then they were just like flowing right back out. I wasn't retaining anything. And even today, I find that to be the case. I'll be sitting there reading something, and I'll realize like 5 minutes later, it's like I don't remember anything I read, right? And I go back and reread it, and I remember reading it, but I couldn't tell you anything about what I just read. So it's a very odd thing to have, as far as like a channel like this where I discuss so much macroeconomic stuff and monetary policies and all that, to have that sort of disability that I'm overcoming. But yeah, that's really the case for me. Hey, I just got a super chat. Let's go check that out. Got a super chat from Ordinary Bitcoin, $4.99. Thank you so much. Stoked you are a Bitcoiner now. I have been for a long time. Bitcoiner now too, been a follower since 2018, have learned so much from you and your content. Has opened my mind to economics. Well, thank you so much, Ordinary Bitcoin. I really appreciate the support with the $5 super chat. Um, yeah, and that's just the thing. Like, anytime you've ever learned economics, you're most of the time you're learning it again from like somebody else's base, right? They had like this particular belief, like they had this Keynesian belief, this Austrian economic belief. They had this particular base to it. And for me, I didn't have a base that I started from. I was just like, let's go figure it out, right? And so it's almost like thinking about like a mixed martial arts kind of thing, where they're incorporating so many different fighting styles into something. That's very much how I look at economics. Is like this mix of all kinds of different economic styles, and it's not one that I feel that is like should be or could be or whatever. Like that part of it is not in my strategies or ideas. It's not the way it should be or could be, right? It's just the way it is. And why is it this way? And once you understand that part of things, then you don't really care so much about like the way it should be, because yeah, it could always be a different way. It could always be the way that I want it. But, I mean, that's kind of egotistical again. I think it should be the way that I want it to be. That way it works for me. I mean, screw everybody else and how it works for them, because there's people out there who are doing quite well in this system. Even though we don't like it, it works for them. So if we didn't make it work for them, that's being egotistical again, saying, hey, it shouldn't work for them, but it should work for me. All right. So understanding that you can make it work for you is the only way this can really go down, and by doing that is to be in the understanding of why this is occurring the way it occurs. And that's why I love this Cantillon essay. It's like the best, because if you can recognize the economic forces from hundreds of years ago being played out today, then you don't have to blame. There's no more blame. Like there's reason. There's you can see it right there. This is why it's going down this way. All right, caught the end of a live. Yeah, we're getting pretty close here, I guess. What are we up? An hour and 12 minutes into this. I don't know if you guys can get it up to, well, we got 221 people watching. Get it up to 200 likes by the hour and a half mark, and I'll hang out for a little longer. Otherwise, we'll call it quits at an hour and a half. We're at 129 likes now, 222 people watching. All right. Michael, it's very dangerous shopping for answers. Great way to get sold on a bridge. Looking for considerations is much safer. Yeah, I absolutely agree, all-nighter. All right. Was thinking about riding a motorcycle across the country. Well, don't come up to the Northwest right now. It is just dumping. By silver, platinum, and crystallized osmium. All right. Andrea says, yeah, I would never, talking to Jeff, I would never want to post my hiking trails on Instagram and blow the spot up for just quick cash. I forgot. You forgot to like, Larry? Oh, I get it. Okay, I see. All right, UE, your opinion is the hurricane damage a boon or bust for the car market? Well, I would imagine that for all the cars that are destroyed and the insurance claims on it is going to be somewhat of a boom for the car market. In fact, you're probably going to start seeing it being although I can't imagine it being very long, but you're probably going to see a fairly decent impact for a certain amount of time. Like I said, I can't imagine it being that significant for too long. But you're going to see like supply that had been diverted away from the hurricane moving back into that particular area, depriving certain areas of that supply as it starts to replenish the hurricane damaged areas. Does that kind of make sense? Because I'm sort of seeing that taking place with plywood right now. OSB is a very common sheathing plywood that would be used in the southern part of the United States. And so as the damage from the hurricane is now going into repair mode, there's going to be a demand for it. But before the hurricane, there was an increase of supply of this particular product moving over to the west side of the nation, as the hurricane was preventing that supply from moving into that area. I mean, they're just not going to deliver into areas where there's a big storm, right? I mean, you're not bringing it to that. You would either deliver before or after that. And as it starts to ramp up, the production that was being produced was moving over away from that hurricane area. Well, that is now moving back into that damaged area to either do the rebuild or whatever it is that, was going back into construction mode anyway. So you're going to see the supply of plywood start to move its way back over into that area. That's going to deprive the places that were previously somewhat oversupplied, not really oversupplied, but had in the abundance going on. And I find that sort of thing that's happening with plywood could happen with a lot of stuff, including the car market. Are you still invested? I'm invested in the miners, but I don't invest in them. I don't put money in towards it. But I did buy, I don't know, $1,000 worth, 5 years ago, something like that. All right. They just discovered a huge lithium mine in Arkansas. Yeah, Larry, that's true. I mean, but I think the major problem with that is that the environmental impact from extracting that lithium is going to be so much that it's going to make it very, I'm not going to say cost prohibitive, but it's going to make it very difficult for them to get that lithium out of the ground in a environmentally conscious way. That is, I mean, I don't know how to quite explain it, but basically it's just like it's too, I don't want to say it's too, because it can happen, right? Because anytime you ever say it's too this much, it's basically saying that it won't, but it's like you have to get past all these other issues that are going to come up from the extraction of that lithium, which is mainly going to be like the polluting of the water systems, the atmosphere and the surrounding areas, all this other stuff that's going to come from it. You have to deal with those conditions, which is then going to be like all these like limitations to why it's not getting used. Right? You go to some place where they don't care about the people, and it's a little easier. All right. What if Trump reduces environmental laws? That's what I'm getting at. All right. They might just say F it and mine it anyways. Thanks to the EPA. Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyone in car sales, what's to stop a title from not being listed as flood damage? Seems like it's an integrity thing. Oh, yeah, right? No kidding. Just get a new car anyway, regardless of, whether or not it was flooded. Sorry, guys. I was just looking for some past questions here that might have been. Okay. I want to do some van travel, and everyone says do a YouTube channel. Puke. Why? Why not, Jeff? I mean, why not share some of your experiences and, build up a community of people that, enjoy watching your travels. I mean, to me, I would think that would be cool. I understand, like, some people don't want to share their personal life, and that part I would get. Like, it's just like, nah, no, man, I ain't going to share my life with people. I totally get that part. I'm not that way. Like, I've already exposed myself so much now that it's just like, I don't know, like, watch anything you want, but I mean, like, here, you want to see me go and shoot pool at some place? I mean, is that exciting? I don't know, but like, that's like what my life would end up being like if I did anything other outside of doing this economics channel. But I think people have a lot that they can share with the world, and the world would enjoy that experience. Now, you have to think, like, it comes down to, like, exchange of values, right? Like, exchanging of value. You have, like, real value, like the picnic table, right? I put energy towards building this picnic table. and it's a valuable thing to somebody that can sit and eat, eat their lunch, whatever, right? So you can produce value in that sense, like, hey, I have something valuable here that I did with my, with my efforts and energy. You got value in the sense that you have services, right, that you can do. You can go and help somebody do something, help explain a particular problem for them, right? Consultation, something like that, right? There's some value inside of that kind of thing. There's like perceived value. You can produce like something of enjoyment, like entertainment, of that nature. Doesn't really serve any kind of other purpose other than it being entertaining. But that has, some value to it too, as people need to relax and chill. So being able to take people away from their life for just a minute so they can, relax and have some fun and being an entertainer, that's value, right? So you figure out these valuable things that you can do and you exchange them. And this is really how everything within the economy really works, right? Is this exchange of values. So a lot of times people will go and, work at their job, acquire money, then they got this money, which is of value, and they exchange it for something that they find valuable out there. And by doing this exchange of values, this is really where you find, how is it that I bring value to the world? Because the more value that I bring to the world, the more opportunity that I can exchange that value for other value. So mainly you can get rewarded monetarily, you can get rewarded in barter systems, you can get rewarded in just other people just sharing their value with you. There's all kinds of ways of exchanging this value. If you have value that you don't want to share with the world, then you keep it secret to yourself, then that value doesn't really get rewarded. And sometimes we say, no, this is mine. It's mine for me to enjoy, and it's not for anybody else. I created this value for me, right? And that's totally cool. Like, that's like, one of the ways you can do it. I didn't create this for somebody else to enjoy. I created it for me to enjoy, right? And that's why I find this particular thing valuable. Other times when you have a valuable experience and you share that valuable experience with other people, they enjoy it. They get an entertained feeling off of it. They feel like, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm going to do something like that. Right? And so you actually have them inspired. You're inspirational by sharing your experiences and nothing else. That's it. You're like, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to give you any ideas on what to do. I'm just showing you all the fun that I am having doing this particular thing. And people look at that and say, wow, I never thought of that. You inspired me to do something like that. That's valuable, right? That's value that you share with the world, and they can come in any way. Like whether you're working hard on a picnic table or coming up with an idea that they can make more money with, or you're just inspiring them to do something that you're doing. Right? That's all value, and it's all rewarded if you want it to be. All right. Let's see here. Parasocial relationships are everywhere. People think they know athletes, artists, YouTubers, influencers, etc. It's insane to me. I actually do know them. Yeah, All Nighter does. I was just thinking, it's funny, these people out there who are like, oh man, I watch all these different channels and I feel like I'm really connected to them. And then All Nighters over there actually connected to these people. He's like, you go to like the economics conventions and All Nighters like more popular than a lot of the speakers that are there. Like the audience knows who All Nighter is. It's so funny too. It's great. I'm also crazy enough while responsible enough to reach out to them. Yeah, and I think that's the important part, is that All Nighter is willing to go out and talk and hang out and have conversations and do all that. And that's really where I think he has that gift for gab, and that's really, he's used that to build up his network in a very, to me, very profound way. Like, it's incredible to see. All right, All Nighter Hider is really Clark Kent in a costume. All right. All right, Benny, what up? All right, All Nighter, aka the Networker. Yep. Okay. let's cruise back up here. 35 trillion. Is America gonna crash and burn? I don't know. Like, it should have, like, a long time ago. And I think about it, it's like, really, if it was limited to, if it was limited with from the lack of technology, then I think that like the United States would have crashed and burned. But I think like the computer systems and the way that we can communicate has then given them the ability to expand the currency operations in a way that then like actually changes its characteristics. And people don't really realize that because they still think, well, a dollar back in 1913 compared to a dollar, that's not the same dollar. It's not like, it says dollar on it and we give it that name, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's like, I mean, it's like I can't even give it two comparisons because it's so dislike things. Like, the only thing that it shares a resemblance of is that there were both currencies. But one of them was backed by gold and silver in a much different government system at the time. Today, it's all debt and fiat currency based and Federal Reserve note. It's not the same, right? It's not the same thing, but we call it a dollar. And so understanding how this like currency changes characteristics over time. And in fact, I think Mike Maloney did a pretty good video on this talking about how the currency changes like every 30 to 40 years on how the backing of it or the characteristics of that currency going from like a gold standard into or like a bimetal to a gold standard to a fiat currency, all and onward. So when I think about how this is going to transition into the next system, right, because it's going to transition, it has to. It's going to go from being a cash system, right, where you have cash available to the people, to a cashless society and a tokenized dollar. Now, how that looks and how that transition takes place is going to be it's going to be pretty interesting to see go down, right? Because I don't know if anybody has this like figured out right. I don't even know if the people who are trying to make this happen, like say the Federal Reserve or the central banking systems, the IMF and Bureau of International Settlements, or any of these people, like I don't know if they really even have the ability to design this thing as much as it will just evolve on its own, right? Because I think that's a lot of what's happening. Like if you were to ask the central bankers back in the 1950s, hey, what are you going to do when they start to tokenize the dollar? And they would have been like, what in the hell are you talking about, right? So the fiat currency system that we have available to us today due to the technology changes has now given the central bankers a whole different type of strategy that they can deploy. And this is really where I feel like a lot of people are going to get like very confused on how it is that the monetary policy is going to be operating going into the future, considering that so many people are kind of stuck in the traditional way of the Federal Reserve, mainly like interest rate adjustments, right? So understanding that this currency is going to change from what we have experienced with like a bimetal to the gold standard to a fiat cash system to a cashless society and tokenized system, and how that transition is going to take place and what it is that the people can expect from that is going to be it's going to be like, I don't know, there's so many theories on how that could work, right? I think about it in just the sense that it's going to happen in a way that most people probably won't recognize. Like they will not recognize that this is happening. And it's going to happen through like debit card purchases or online purchases or anything like that, in which that instead of using a bank transfer where you have like all these different clearing houses, you make a credit card purchase, your bank talks to this bank, talks to that bank, who eventually deposits the money back into that bank. It goes through this intermediary line. It's going to move into a peer-to-peer communication. And now that peer-to-peer communication, which is similar to that of like a Bitcoin function, is going to be done through stablecoin type of application, in which that the dollar has been tokenized, and now these tokens that represent a dollar will be transferred. But most people won't recognize that being the case, considering that they're just going to be sliding their debit card like they normally do. So this transition, which I believe is probably already starting to function, is going to end up becoming very prevalent And the more this becomes prevalent, what you're going to find from there is that the use of cash is going to become a nuisance. They're going to make it a nuisance. In fact, they're going to charge to use cash because they don't want you doing cash when you have this peer-to-peer transaction that is going to be so much more efficient and cheaper and not have any fees attached to it at all. So this sort of thing, how long that takes and what that looks like, again, it's probably going to evolve over time. And I don't know if there's necessarily a central banker out there who can say, nope, it's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's going to look just like this. I think there is a lot of attention to that sort of thing, but the evolution of itself, I think, is going to unfold kind of almost on its own, as people's ideas of what it is that they can do with this technology advances. Alrighty, guys, we made it to 158. Is that what I said, 150, or did I say 200? Didn't I want you guys to get up to 200 if we were going to get there? Keep going. All right, 209 people watching, 158 likes. We're an hour and a half into this. Benny says, Simon, you've said about them trying to move out of the system to a state benefits retirement. This current supposition from you seems off base. I don't understand the question, Benny. All right, let me read this again. Hold on. Simon, you've said about them trying to move out of the system to state benefits retirement. When did I talk about that? I don't know what you're talking about, Benny. I'm sorry, man. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding it. Normally, I like your questions, but that one I just missed. I mean, I like your question. I just don't get it. All right. All right. What backs the token? Nothing. Nothing backs the dollar now. So to try and imagine what backs the token, it would be what backs the dollar now. See, how that token would end up working is that the Federal Reserve's liabilities, right? So the Fed has liabilities and they have assets on their balance sheet. The liabilities are the cash, is the cash money, right? The money that comes from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve knows the reserve deposits, all that other stuff that comes from the Federal Reserve. That's their liability. Their assets are things like a little bit of gold, special drawing rights, mortgage-backed securities, but mainly it's the U.S. Treasury debt, right? So the U.S. government treasuries, that's what sits on the balance sheet. The Federal Reserve has that for assets. Their liabilities are all the cash and reserves and all that other stuff that goes out there. How this token would work is that a third party, right, who develops this token, well, whether it's, a regulated banking institution or something of that nature, or the Federal Reserve figures out a way to create this thing on its own, considering that they don't have the legal authority to really do this, right, to create like a Fed coin, right? That's not really it's not really within their legal capabilities through their charter. Now that can change, but at this point, that would be very difficult for them to operate with. However, what they can do is allow third parties out there to then create a stable coin, which is then a token that is represented by a dollar, take the dollars, put it on their balance sheet, issue out this token, and now this token essentially has dollars sitting in a bank account or sitting on the shelf, so to speak, and the token is out there being used in circulation. The cash is now sitting outside of circulation. It's not being used. So the dollar itself is being backed, or the dollar itself is being backed by the U.S. government debt, right? The promise to tax the people to pay this debt. That's what sits on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve. The liabilities are the cash that goes out there or the dollars that gets used. If that gets taken out of circulation and a token is then replaced by it, the token is essentially the dollar. Now the Federal Reserve can conduct themselves as normal, like how they always conducted themselves, or essentially like they conducted themselves, without having to change really anything. And their monetary policy will then transfer through the dollar into that token. Right? So this way, they don't actually have to create anything changing the way they do things, don't have to change their charter or their legal authority or anything like that. They can continue to operate the way they normally do, doing their monetary policy and knowing that monetary policy will transfer right into that tokenized coin. So, I mean, nothing backs it. Nothing. Except for the promise that men with guns will come and take everything that you own if you don't pay the taxes. That's what it's backed by. Right? It's backed by threat. Incredible threat. All right. I want a token backed by dollars, backed by Bitcoin, backed by gold, backed by BRICS token. Ugh, no, I do not want a BRICS token. You know why? It's because none of the BRICS nations actually they cannot operate in a way with a commodity based currency that would then allow them to not, like, let me see if I say this right. If you have a commodity based currency, the most industrious nation of them will hoard it all for themselves and rule over the others. There's no other way that that could work because the United States did that. Right? So all you have to do is just look at the United States, or any nation actually through history that was industrious, who was more industrious than the rest of them out there. They hoarded all the money for themselves. They grew quite powerful, you know, and ended up ruling over the other nations out there. And there's no reason to think that the BRICS nations wouldn't do that themselves, right? And it's not like they can form together and say, hey, let's do this and screw the other guys, because within their own little group, they will screw each other because they're all going to try to be the most industrious one who hoards all the money for themselves, right? They will all want to be exporters and none of them want to be importers, but they all want to do the exporting, right? All right. It's a hassle to go to the ATM for cash. BRICS nations are wanting to go to war with each other. First problem. Yeah. And that's just the thing. Whether you're fighting over commodities, you're fighting over, the ability to control the exports. If you're fighting, like, it's all fighting, no matter how you do it. And eventually it gets to like physical, like real fighting. All right. My brother works for Toyota and he is saying they are laying off people in hours. Do you think work will be diminishing the next year? Yeah. But I think, like, and that's the thing is like, I've always thought that that was going to be happening. But the problem that I think a lot of people are going to face is very much like the paycheck to paycheck discussion that we were having earlier today. They go from having a high paying job, like say you had a job working at Toyota, you were like, a high level worker there, right? And I don't know what they would pay for, like, the average salary for working like a production line or something like that, but I'm just going to make up some numbers. You got a guy there who's making $40,000 a year, right? He's like, working the production line of something. He makes $40,000 a year. He's going to get laid off. You also have another guy there who's making $150,000 a year. He's working up in the office. He's doing engineering kind of things. I don't know. Like, he's making a lot more money, but he's going to get laid off as well. Now, both of these people are going to have to go out there and find some sort of work out there. And considering that it's a pretty specified position to try and earn $150,000 a year, being like, an engineer or designer or something of that nature, where you have this kind of high level position, you're probably going to have a very limited amount of places that you can go and find work that's going to be of the same caliber and pays the same amount. However, if you have been working there for any kind of length of time, most likely you have conditioned your life to be earning $150,000 a year. So you get laid off and you have a $150,000 a year job and you have been living paycheck to paycheck. That's going to be quite devastating. Yeah, I mean, you're going to find the painful experience of, car repossessions and loss of being not being able to make your house payment and all kinds of stuff. So that's going to suck for you, and it's going to be quite painful, and it's going to be a hell of an experience and a story that you can tell. Now, the same dude who's making $45,000 a year, he gets laid off, and now's that going to be a painful experience. Yeah, he's probably going to miss a couple of truck payments or something like that if he doesn't find a job right away. But at $45,000 a year, most likely he's going to be able to pick up another job out there, and even if it doesn't pay as much, going from $45,000 a year to, say, $30,000 a year, might lose the truck payment, might, lose the ability to watch Netflix, might lose, the chance to go on that hunting trip to Montana and all the other stuff that he was planning on doing, might lose that, but most likely you might be able to earn enough money to continue to pay the rent. Right? So your life gets diminished, but it doesn't necessarily go bad. Right? Now, going from $150,000 a year to $30,000 a year, and that's just going to be devastating. Like, it's not even, you might as well just not have got a job at all. right? That's how painful of an experience it is. So now when we think about this, when we think about like what we have experienced over the last 5 years, because it has been so different from what we have experienced in past recessions and depressions and all that other stuff, is that we are now in the experience of a recessionless recession. And this is something that I had predicted long ago, over a year ago or more, and it's very much playing out today. And that is that when people are losing that $150,000 a year job, they have to go to work at the service industry, they're counted as employed. Okay? Like, they may not take a job working at the service industry, but that dude who got laid off from the $45,000 a year job probably will. Right? They'll take any job that they can find. And although it's not a good job that might have been paying, the higher wages, it's a job. And that's the difference that I think a lot of this environment, this economy is experiencing right now that is different from the past, is that we came off of an incredibly tight labor market, like the tightest labor market in history. I mean, this is going all the way back to the Obama administration, was bragging about having the lowest unemployment. All throughout Trump administration, he loved talking about the low unemployment. Going into the Biden administration, we had the COVID pandemic, which basically everybody lost their job for a minute. And then all of a sudden, there was just massive hiring that took place after the stimulus packages came out, which pretty much caused the labor market to be incredibly tight, as all these jobs were available for all these people. And having coming off of a massive retirement during COVID, there was very few people out there to fill those jobs. Wages went sky high. You look over at places like, the service industry, like a McDonald's, all of a sudden they're throwing hiring bonuses and offering wages that were, incredible, considering that this was like minimum wage jobs back in the day that would pay a handful of dollars, who are now paying close to, $15, $20 an hour. Well, that situation right there was very unique. That wasn't something that we had experienced in our economy quite in the same fashion. And so when we think about that for just a minute, it was just like, okay, so here you have all these jobs available in the service industry, and all this money is getting deployed from all these corporations into hiring people. What happens when we go into a downturn? These corporations are going to lay those people off, and they're going to have to go find jobs where? At all these service industries that are not finding employment right now. So really, do you see the unemployment rising significantly during that time? Not really. Right? It's not meaning that it's a good deal, right? It doesn't mean that the economy is kicking ass. It doesn't mean that, no, it's just like they managed to pull it off. What it means is that they were going into a very unique situation that was not typically available to the economy like it was. Right? And so recognizing that that was the case, like, man, these corporations, when they fail, all these people are going to go find work over at the restaurants. They are going to be counted as employed, not as unemployed. And you're not going to find a huge rise in the unemployment. And they're not going to bail out these corporations, because the corporations had already gotten bailed out during COVID. So it turned out very much to be a recessionless recession, like I had described it. And I didn't know it was going to quite look like this. Hey, these two conditions seem to be playing out, right? Bro, what? At the dude? All right. The dude, 9 to 5 paycheck, can't even afford car insurance. Employer problem solving, they say take the bus. Well, the dude, you need to figure it out, man. It's not up to them to give you the life that you're looking for, man. It's up to you to figure out the life that you're looking for. All right. And if that 9 to 5 job doesn't cut it, then you need to go and figure out side hustles. And if you don't know how to do that, you need to start studying up on how to create a dollar out there, doing online sales or building that picnic table so you can be in the energy of starting a business. Same. It's all up to you. There's nothing out there that's going to make it any better for you. All right, thanks, Simon. Listen to you and reading live chat is a great way to spend my Saturday morning. See ya. Thank you, KT. Really appreciate you hanging out for the hour and 45 minutes we've been out here. But we got 177 likes. If you keep hitting that like button, we'll stick it around for a little bit longer. I think I was going to end the stream at about 15 minutes ago, but it's fun, so we just keep going, you know? All right. Employers should give a 420 break once a day. It's not up to me to work for them for peanuts. Do I look like a money? All right, the dude, like, I don't know what you expect from the world, but the world isn't going to give you anything, right? Like, I mean, you got to figure out what it is that you can do that's going to be useful, something that's going to be impactful to the world, something that is going to be in a way that then says, yeah, here, you can be rewarded for your efforts. Complaining about your job and your employer, like my employer, no matter what job I've ever had, my employer has never, ever, ever, ever in the history of time paid me enough. I don't care what I was doing. Even when I was making decent money doing construction, it wasn't enough. Never have I ever been paid enough in the history of time. The only time that I ever felt like I was actually making any kind of money is when I was doing side hustles, when I was doing extra work, right? Extra work beyond the work I was already doing. Anytime that I was pursuing more excellence in my life, that's when I found that I had the ability to start doing things that was beyond what it is that I felt was limiting me, right? My employer has never, ever, ever paid me enough, right? That is down. There's not a time in history, not for anybody. Like, I can't find anybody out there. You go to them and it was just like, man, do you get paid enough? And they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My employer pays me enough. Yeah, that's me. Like, it doesn't work like that, you know? And besides, Cantillon already recognized that most people will eagerly work for what it is that they need as a necessity in their life, but put very little effort towards anything beyond that. Right? I mean, it's just like, if Cantillon can describe it from hundreds of years ago, you know it's still playing out. All right. How do you think services will change in the future when 95 jobs can't cut it anymore? Well, that's just the thing. I don't think the job is like, I think most people are expecting that the 9 to 5 job, or that the job is going to be there to provide for the people. And what is it they're going to do if it doesn't work? The necessity will then force them into doing other things, right? They will be forced into it. They will have no other choice. And if they don't do it, then what they are going to find is that they are going to find themselves on the bottom side of the wedge, complaining about how come it is that they can't make it over on the other side, you know, to having more things in their life. And that's just what's going to end up being. It's not up to an administration. It's not up to society. It's not up to any kind of thing out there to figure out what it is that you need in your life to have that's beyond what it is that you need to survive. Like, that's entirely up to you, right? In every way. And there's nobody else. There's you. And so it's not that hard. You have to figure out, again, we just talked about it, like that value. If you are looking for valuable things out there in the world, you're looking for the value of a house, a car, food, things, whatever, you have to share value with them, right? With everybody else. And so your value comes from being useful, being productive, being, chasing that excellence. That's where it comes from. And then you have to give it time, because it doesn't happen. The reward doesn't come from it like immediately. It comes over time, because the universe takes forever to figure it out that that's what you want, because you have to be dedicated to it. If you're only dedicated for a minute and you say, it doesn't work. See, I proved to myself it doesn't work. You were trying to manipulate it. Of course it won't work. Nothing works when you're trying to manipulate it, because you're being egotistical about it. You have to understand it for what it really is. You have to internalize this completely, meaning that you don't put out there ideas and thoughts that says, if it doesn't work this way, then it's them that's holding me down, because then it will be proven to you that will be the case. It'll straight up, like, if you say, no, I'm going to try and do this, and the government's going to actually hold me down and prevent me from actually being successful, that is exactly what will happen, right? That's exactly how it'll go down. So again, you have to like, you have to figure it out in a way that says, okay, I know how to be useful. I can build this picnic table and I can sell this picnic table and I can make $100 and I can be in the mindset of being a business owner, business producing occupation of independent thought and feelings and all the other stuff that doesn't rely on the 9 to 5 job. And then I'll set that aside and go to my 9 to 5 job. Right? uh, After my daughter, let's see, this is Jeff talking to Andrea. After my daughter started working from home, she started adding up all the cost of going into the office, and it was ridiculous. Yeah, I can imagine that. What does that say? Phoebe Omni Bebop? Bebop? All right, a lot of positions were phased out by modernization and the printers, though. Yeah. I mean, I'm finding like even my own position at work is going to be eventually phased out. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing through portals now. So like I fire up my computer and I literally order stuff like by filling in the blanks, like literally click, 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 click. Like that's what I do now. And I'm thinking, man, I'm not really doing anything, right? I am relaying information that the customer is asking for, and I am then putting it into the computer, right? Like I'm not doing anything. I'm not like, I mean, I guess I'm somewhat useful being the intermediary, so they don't have to do it. But it's not really that useful when the customer could literally just look at the questions and answer it themselves and do the same thing, right? So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now, I can see my job being phased away. It's just like, well, here it goes, it's just like it's on its way out. And most people just find, oh, look how convenient and easy it is, and I'm like, yeah, it sure is. It's convenient and easy. I've been working for the government for 10 years, and now McDonald's employers make the same amount as I do. This is funny. I have been working since I was 18 years old at a lumberyard when I started off making slightly above minimum wage. Minimum wage at the time was $4.50 an hour, and I was making $4.75. All right. And I remember I got fairly quickly, I was able to get up to $5 an hour. And I remember my buddies were like, man, that is so cool. You're making 50 cents above minimum wage. That is so rad. Right? Like I was like, yeah, no, cool, right? Because in my time, like if you were in high school, you were like, unless you were, you knew somebody or whatever, most minimum wage jobs were going to be paying you the minimum wage, right? But I got a job that paid 25 cents above minimum wage and got a raise to 50. Well, then shortly after that, the minimum wage went up to 4.75. And I thought, well, that sucks. Like it was like not even getting a raise. Like I didn't get a raise. I just like, cause I wasn't making that much more above minimum wage than I was. In fact, if you think about it, I was making even less now because the minimum wage had gone up like on a percentage basis. I didn't even like get that much of a raise. And so I thought to myself, man, minimum wage going up bites. Like I work hard, put out a lot of effort, try to increase my position at the job that I was at so that I could get paid more, only to find that minimum wage increase to the position in which that I would have had anyway, almost. Like, I mean, a little bit more, but really, if I had done nothing at all, I would have gotten a raise anyway. And so I thought, well, I have to just work that much harder to get that much more. And so the harder I worked and the more money I earned, I would just keep looking back and I would see minimum wage nipping at my heels the entire time thinking, man, why am I trying so hard to acquire a position that has more stress, more, responsibilities for slightly better pay, only to find that the minimum wage had just increased to the position that I was just at. I would have got a raise anyway if I had done nothing at all. Okay. So I found the minimum wage to be a very big nuisance and a pain in the ass. That it didn't really do anything but make my efforts as trying to get into a better position less meaningful. Right? That's what it really did. If minimum wage was still $4 an hour or $4.50 an hour, and the wage that I'm making today, it would be a hell of a lot of money. But, minimum wage now, I don't even know. It's just like, it's not that, I mean, I make pretty decent pay now, but considering, what minimum wage today is to what it was when I started working, 30 years ago. I mean, I know it was a long time ago. It's not even the same, right? It's like, minimum wage makes it very difficult to be inspired to work hard in this country. If you had minimum wage that was like there was no minimum wage, then you could have just about anybody you want out there working. Because, see, there's people out there who are not really capable of earning 18 or 15 or $13 an hour or whatever the minimum wages are in your state. Like, our state is really high. And you can't find, like, people who are capable of earning that sort of money. Right? They just, like, mentally, they're just not there. Physically, they're not capable. But they could probably earn $4 or $5 an hour doing some pretty minimal tasks, right? Like sweeping parking lots and, picking up cigarette butts, stuff like that. It requires you to pay that person a minimum amount. They're not allowed to work because they're just simply not smart enough to do it, right? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but if they were smarter and capable, then they would have a job, but they don't because they're just not mentally there. They're not capable. And so they're not mentally capable of doing it. They're too stupid to work in this country. And that's what minimum wage is telling them. Sorry, right? You have to be able to at least have the capability of producing so much for your boss. And if you don't have that capability, I'm sorry, you can't be here. You can't work here in our economy, right? You're going to have to live on the streets and be a bum and then have people spit on you and tell you that you should be trying harder with your life. See, this is how the minimum wage conducts itself, or how people conduct themselves inside of this economy with this minimum wage. That's literally the case. Like, I can't, there's people out there who are just not smart enough to earn that kind of money for their boss. And so the United States tells them, you're screwed. You're too stupid. Sorry. But, you're going to have to live a miserable life. That's all there is to it. You can't have a job. Not here. Right? Because those people are required to pay people a minimum amount. And if you're not smart enough to do it, you're out. Sorry. You're out the game. All right. I disagree. And your state has no minimum wage, and the states with the higher minimum wage are getting more pay, and the inflation increases, you're getting robbed with your lower wage. All right. 12 years of my life was wasted in school. Tizzy Bear, thank you so much for the $2. I really appreciate you. We're coming up to an hour and 57 minutes right now with 220 people and 189 likes. Let's get 11 likes in the next 2 minutes here. We get it up to 200. We'll stick it out a little longer. I'll call it quits at 2 hours. All right. And I know I keep threatening that, but I'm serious this time. Go hit the like button. We got 190 right now. Get it to 200, and we'll stick it out for a little longer. If you want to stay here. We get our electric from fracking gas here in Pennsylvania. Thanks, Tizzy. Yeah, thank you, all-nighter. Minimum wage should be nationwide, not by the state. Okay. I mean, if you think that's going to work, then I mean, that's cool. Like, I'm not trying to disagree with your opinion, saying, man, this is my opinion, this is the way it should be. That's cool. I don't have that sort of opinion on things. I don't have any belief that the government can do anything that's going to provide me with any kind of better way of life. I can do that. I need to do that. And a lot of times it would just be better if government wasn't there. Right. And so I am more of an anarchist in my beliefs about government than anything out there. Right. I don't believe that government can help. I believe that we can govern ourselves in a very peaceful manner, a very productive manner. I believe that we, through technologies of blockchain distribution, understandings, communications, and stuff like that, can really eliminate government right out of our lives, especially through the ideas of smart contracts and stuff like that. If we could just make it so that government was just simply insignificant, like they just, you're just like, you don't serve any purpose anymore, that would be the direction in which that I would want to go. Because again, I am more of an anarchist than anything. Like, I believe that we can govern ourselves. I think that we can. And by governing ourselves through applications like smart contracts that then says, hey, if you don't fulfill your end of the deal, this is going to happen. We don't have to go to court to say, hey, you didn't do it. This is going to take place regardless. All right. And that's sort of like society and economy and stuff like that I believe in. Like I believe that would be awesome. And inside of that, you wouldn't have government rule or, anything like that. Tahan, what's happening? Hey, Simon, bro, aren't you ever concerned about some weak dude, the wrong dude, listens to what you say and then decides to kill himself? Good Lord, bro. And or worse, someone else because he was triggered by what you say. No. First of all, if I say something that you take so personally that you go and end up capping yourself, that was your issue, man. That wasn't me. Okay? I'm not here to protect somebody's feelings. Right? Feelings aren't facts, man. Like that is not something that you can put on me. And to say, hey man, you use words that got him depressed and he went out there and shot himself or something of that nature. I don't know even where to begin on something like that, but that is such an irresponsible way of believing that life in itself is on somebody else's time, right? Like everybody out there has their own decisions to make. They have their own life to live. They have their own responsibilities that they have to conduct themselves with. And now to take that and put it on somebody else saying, oh, dude, because you said this, it ruined my life. Like, honestly, is there anything that anybody could possibly ever say that would then create a situation in which that your life was no longer worthy? Is that possible? Like, you have to question yourself and what it is that you think and understand within your own belief system. You have to look at the shame that is within you that says, man, this person said something and it was so impactful to me that it ruined my life. Right? Is that even a possible? All right. How to abolish minimum wage? Short of a revolution, is it even possible? No, it's not. Right? It's not possible. And that's the thing. Like, I don't look at it as even being a possibility. I look at it for what it is. That's what it is. People are like, hey man, unemployment could be a lot, whatever, right? Like I understand where, it is that people find their expectations and where it is that they find themselves in a bad position. And I know that a lot of it, like all of it, really has to come down to what it is that they are thinking and feeling and believing. That's it. Everybody is useful. That's the thing. Like everybody doesn't realize it, but everybody is. Everybody has usefulness. They have something in them that has purpose, that has meaning, it has passion. Most people can't find it. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to bring that out of themselves. Once you figure that out, things become a lot easier. You know that you're good at something. You know that you're good at it. You're good at working on that motorcycle. You're good at doing that drawing. You're good at, something. You're good at fishing. You share that idea, that passion, that energy, right, with other things that are out there, you're going to find the reflection being incredibly, incredibly positive and incredibly encouraging and incredibly bountiful, right? But it's hard because most people just want to find the reasons why it doesn't work. They focus so much time and energy on why it's screwed that they don't ever give themselves the ability or the moment or the time to then go out there and search out what it is that they really need to be doing with their life. That's the hardest part that most people do not figure out. They think, man, there needs to be a way that this world exists, that my efforts and everything that I am doing is going to be rewarding. That's the way most people look at it. They say, man, I'm trying hard, right? You do try hard. You're trying hard to make what it is that you are doing to be successful in this world. And then you're working out the world saying, this is why it's not successful. Instead, what it is you have to say, man, my hard work is difficult here. It's not enough, right? It's not enough of what I'm doing. I need to figure out what it is that I can do to promote myself better. I need to figure out what it is I need to do to make the connections better. I need to figure out what it is that I need to do out here, considering that it's very difficult. But if I spend my time looking out there saying these are the reasons why it doesn't work, then you're not moving into the energy, or you're not moving into the ability then to find all those connections you need to then advance your life. Because you're looking at the things and you're moving towards the things that are saying this is the difficult reasons. Here's all the evidence of it. Let me find more evidence of it, right? When you should be finding the connections. It doesn't work the way you want it to. Nothing does. Nothing goes down the way you want it to, because the ego has a particular way of it working. It needs to look like this. I need to get paid like this. I need to find the connections like this. If it doesn't look like this, it's wrong. If I'm moving in a direction that doesn't look like this, it's wrong. And that's how most people end up failing, is because they don't realize that you just have to go through the process, right? You just have to go through the experience of it. Some people say, no, man, look, I'm trying hard, but it seems like I'm going through this deep, dark, horrible valley. Unfortunate, that's the process of it, right? That's the thing you need to go through. If you weren't experiencing that, then you wouldn't have the tools and the capabilities and the understandings of what it is that you need to do to climb the mountain. Because if you're just right there at the top of the mountain, you say, no, I need to go from right here to the top of the mountain. I don't want to go through this valley and all the other crap that goes along with it. Well, then you're not going to be able to do it, because there's stuff down in there that you need to learn in order to understand what it is you need to do to rise to the top of the mountain. And that's how most people end up failing, is that they go into some kind of adventure, some kind of experience, some kind of business thing, and they find themselves sitting in the valley going, man, this sucks, I quit, when they were almost there. They were figuring it out. The reason why they were in the valley is because they needed to figure out where to put the pieces. Right? Once they get it all that start to figure it out, and they start moving out of the valley, then they find the climbing up the mountain is a struggle. Right? And so they're like, man, this is hard. Why is it so hard to do this? It was supposed to be easy. I was supposed to be at the top of the mountain, being all successful and everything. And all I find is that is this difficult, every single step of it. And yet they stick it out, and they're committed, and they're loyal to the outcome, right? And they're like, eventually they just give up on the whole idea that they're going to make it to the top of the mountain, and they're just doing their thing and doing their business. And then one day they realize, man, they got a hell of a view. And they look around, they're like, oh shit, we made it to the top of the mountain, man. I didn't even know that I was going there. At one point I gave up on the whole idea of actually acquiring that, but they just kept sticking to it. Right? That's how this stuff ends up working. You ask anybody out there, you ask all those successful people, and there might be a couple of them, but you ask most of those successful people that, hey man, was it just easy going, like no problem, easy sailing the entire time, all the way right up to all your success? And I am going to tell you right now, I have asked that question to a bunch of rich people, like, what was one of the hardest things you had experienced? And many of them talked about how they had lost or came close to losing everything that they had. All of it, right? They went through a valley because they had to go through the valley, or else they wouldn't be able to hold on to what it is that they have today. Right? By being in the valley, they learned what it is that they needed to do to not lose what it is that they have. Right? And so they took that time of failure to figure that out. And that's where most people end up finding their successful experiences, is coming out of failure, coming out of a traumatic experience, coming out of a loss, right, of some sort. That's where they find it. It's during that time. Right? They don't see it any other way. Otherwise, it doesn't come. There's like, they wouldn't be even looking for anything different. All right, you guys are nailing that like button. Thank you so much. Yep, I failed numerous times before I finally got it right with my business. That's life. It's the way it is. It's the way it goes. Yeah, that's right. Real reviews. That's the truth of it, man. I mean, I tried a bunch of different YouTube channels. I mean, I tried doing like hobby farm. I tried doing, just all kinds of like silly stuff. When I started the Uneducated Economist, I had very, very little expectations of anybody ever following the channel because I had started channels in the past and nobody had ever followed those ones. I mean, a few, you get a few likes here and there, a couple of comments. And even when I started the Uneducated Economist, people weren't really watching it. I mean, I put out, I don't know, 6 months worth of videos before anybody really started catching on. And, some of the earlier followers to the channel, they were very encouraging. They were like, the comments were like awesome. They were like, hey, keep it going. Love the work. Don't give this up. And so I was like, all right, cool. With no belief that it was ever going to make any money or anything, I was just like, try to make a video every day, or every other day. That's, kind of what my attitude was. And people were like, man, this is helpful. This is useful. And if I kept going with it, right, I didn't know that it was going to do what it did. Right? I just didn't. I had no anticipation of it. When I finally decided that I was going to try and monetize the channel, I did it for one reason, is because I had a buddy who got a Google check, right? Because of his YouTube channel, he had a video that got like 30,000 views. It was really popular. I was like, man, you need to monetize this. It was back when you didn't have to meet all this criteria for monetizing. So he was able to monetize his channel right away, got a $100 check. He was like, hey, that's cool. Look what I did. And I'm like, oh man, I want to do that too. And so my whole goal was literally to earn $100 off of the ad revenue. And once I did it, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to do that again." And that was it. That was my entire motivation for making money. It just did so well. Like it did everything to change my life. I kept making the videos. The videos got really popular. Lumber industry took off, or the price of lumber shot off. People were coming to my channel on a regular basis to try and figure out what was going on. It became very popular, made a bunch of money off of it, got myself out of debt, put the money down on a house. Like everything about my life started changing. And again, I had not planned on doing it. Like, I mean, I went through a lot of YouTube style channels and video creation that got very little attention, right? And I realized that you don't have to put that much effort into creating a video. You have to do a good video, right? If you want to do edits, you have to do good edits. If you're going to, do stuff, you have to do good things. So if I was going to create videos, again, from the working class point of view, being in a position of not having any kind of education or anything else with it, I thought to myself, doing edits is actually the wrong way of going about it. Doing videos beginning to end with no edits, knowing that this is coming from the heart, from my true understanding, and not something that I'm just trying to make up or rehearse or script out or something of that nature, I know is going to be the authentic me that is going to be the best for this channel. And that's what I have stuck to the entire time. Like, I've never scripted out. That's not true. Back in the early days, I did try doing a script saying, hey, you're going to say these things. And they were terrible videos. I hated them. I found that if I just pour out the information, start the camera, turn it off, that's how it goes. And it works. All right. What do we got here? Let's cruise down to the bottom. Simon Goat. Hey, thanks, Brody. I appreciate you, man. All right. Philip is learning things whether or not he will admit it. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you stick around long enough and you listen to my theories, people say, oh, man, I don't know if I believe any of that stuff that you said. Yeah, but you still took it in. You still took in that information, and now you're thinking about it when you're watching those talking heads up there doing their thing. You're still remembering what the Uneducated Economist said about average inflation rate over time, still thinking about the neutral interest rate, all these issues that are coming up. You have internalized some of the information that I've said, and you are using it regardless if you believe it or not. All right. I hope Philip sticks around and becomes a huge UE proponent. Where's Philip? I want to see what he's saying. You're all talking about Philip here. Where's Philip? All lies. Oh, man. Philip don't like my channel? Oh, Philip don't like me. Greedy fool speaks. I see. Oh, Philip's just a troll. All BS. This is what's wrong with the USA. See, now this is the problem that most people end up facing when they come onto a channel like mine, is that they have a bunch of negative things to say about it, but yet have nothing to actually add of any kind of value or opinion sharing. They just basically just like, just dump out a bunch of hateful comments that are negative, and with the idea that they can, control the comment section or, something of that nature. But it's not helpful, so just don't talk to them and don't listen to them. All right, if someone ever asks who inspired me, I am going to say UE. Of course, they probably won't know what the hell I'm talking about. Right on, Jeff. I appreciate you, man. All right. Fail, first attempt in learning. Absolutely. Unhappy people envy, and ungrateful men become greedy. I see a whole lot of successful people in an unsuccessful state of mind. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I have been recommended the book Fail Forward. If men would learn how to govern themselves, they would have already be successful. I see you around here from time to time, Phillips. Regardless of the negative stuff you say, it's good to see being part of the UE family. Yeah. Larry Bird, he needs a hug. Yeah, he does. Miracles of YouTube made so many people's lives and dreams come true. Congratulations. That's his mom's car. All right, Philip is bitter. That's restricting and leads to a bitterness spiral. Now, see, this is the point of a troll, is to take control of the comment section by just spewing out a bunch of negative stuff and get people to comment and talk about it. Yeah. All right. I have internalized so much from you, Simon. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate that, man. My kid and ex watch UE. Thank you, Deja Vu. I appreciate you. I beg God all my life. Who is there to beg after that? Just acceptance is what it is. Philip, we're going to love you into the chat, homie. All right. You guys talking about anything other than Philip? All right, Magic Man. I have most of the stuff I want to, so there's really no need for me to work on 1,000,000,000 hours a week to get more fancy things. I painted my room and would like to replace the carpet. That's about it. There you go. What's your theory on the Matrix? Matrix was a great proxy movie. Keep up everything you do, brother. Well, thank you, Katie. Would you say Bitcoin is infinitely divisible like gold? Well, of course it is. I mean, you can break it down to, a little tiny molecule, right? I mean, but, if is that like really something that is going to be useful to be able to break it down into like, something that you couldn't even really see anymore so that everybody could have a piece of it? To me, that's a very like cumbersome way of going about it. The possibilities of loss are just, hard to deal with. So if you were really to take gold and break it down infinitely, it would probably be best to tokenize it and then break the token down. That way you can have the ounce of gold sitting there on the shelf and then say, hey, there's representative pieces of that gold that can be distributed out. And then that way it can be considered, infinitely broken apart without actually having to do it. Greg, I was thinking on that, and so divisions can be thought as needed, though I don't think it's just that easy. Look what they did to me, and they still refuse to pay the restitution. You mean situation like they pay the restitution. Zero debt equals no need to work yourself to death. Yui, do you watch sports? I just spent 80 bones on a UFC fight. Ooh, Larry. No, I don't really watch sports, but I did take the boy up to go see the last Mariners game. We went up and watched that, and that was a hell of a lot of fun. We spent, a good chunk of money going up there, spending the night up there, and then going to the game itself, and, but that was an experience, it was an experience for Freddie to go watch, to go see a professional ball game, to actually go and interact and meet some of the players and stuff like that. So that was, it was a good time. I don't know if I would necessarily spend money to watch a sporting event at my house, like, pay-per-view kind of thing. Streaming fights or whatever. I'm probably not into it that much. If somebody finds that's like their thing, I mean, a lot of times people, I don't necessarily look at hobbies as moving into luxuries, right? It can be, like your hobby can be luxuries, like having fancy cars or something of that nature. But if it's like something that you're enjoying, this is something that is like what you enjoy for your life. This is something that you enjoy building and working on, having, doing, whatever it is, and it costs money to do it. You do have to ask yourself, is this like, is this luxurious experience going to actually hurt me? Like, is my hobby going to, improve my life or deplete my life? And a lot of times when it comes to sports, so many people like, put so much money into traveling to go watch games, or putting it towards, buying the streaming events or whatever it is on TV. That's a lot of money that goes into that. And there's no real reward that comes from that. Right? Like you don't get to, it's not like chasing excellence, that's chasing pleasure the entire time. So, to me, that's something that I would be very prevalent in doing in my life. Money doesn't compensate lack of control of keeping your hands to yourself, or maybe you can keep the money and just give up the hands and keep everyone safe. There's one in every crowd, Philip. Red Brick, I don't believe money equals freedom. I believe it buys you options. Plenty of rich people living in a cage of their own making. Yeah, of their own making. Look at Trump. He's not free. Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, I think about it myself. There's people out there that I know that work so hard at their business that they literally cannot take a day off. Like they wake up one morning and they decide, oh man, it's like, screw this day. I'm going to go to the beach and hang out. Like I'm just going to chill, relax, enjoy myself, regroup, get recharged, get back to work again tomorrow. They have not conditioned their life to do that. They have conditioned their life that they have to show up every single day and bust their ass every single day, all day long, in order to hold on and retain all that they have built and acquired, which might be like the appearance of something very successful. Big house, new cars, lots of fancy clothes, all this other stuff, but they're so like committed, or not even committed. They're like, in order to keep that, they have to be committed, right? So now they have no ability to actually move into a freer position of saying, hey, I'm just going to chill and relax. Like you think about it, somebody who's homeless has all the chill and relax they want. They don't have the stress of doing business. So here they are, they have this ultimate freedom of doing whatever they want with their day. This other person who appears to have all the success is very limited on what it is that they can do with their day. It has to be this. If it's not this, the whole thing comes undone. Right? All right, you can be homeless and be freer than some rich people. Absolutely. Uh, Philip, I think we respect your opinion and respectfully disagree. Uh, it's kind of triggered. Philip, Philip's the kind of triggered, weak mind dude that I was talking about earlier. For sure. I mean, again, it's just like when you're bored and you have nothing else going on and you don't know what it is that you're supposed to do with your world, you try to create the world in which that you feel that exists. And if you believe that your world is full of shit, right, then what you will do is you will create the world to look just like what you feel. And this is coming straight through with Philip's comments. Like, you can just see it. Here we are talking about ways that you can be successful, how you can use this information to better yourself, what it is that you can take on for an attitude that's going to be better and more rewarding for you. And Philip tries to shit on that because Philip doesn't have anything in his life that's worthy, right? And I'm not trying to pick on him. I'm just, I mean, it's coming through. Well, you don't know who you are. You're just a comment here on the rest of the, like everybody else is. But ultimately, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to create shit out of this video. You're trying to create shit out of the comment section, right? You're trying to create that world that you believe exists out there. The rest of us just don't see it that way. So your comment doesn't really do it for us. Nobody agrees with you. Nobody, appreciates, anything that you have to say that's so negative. You can have your opinion all you want. Like, nobody disagrees with opinions, I mean, everybody disagrees with opinion. Having an opinion is what I mean. Nobody disagrees that everybody has an opinion, right? We all have them. So, there's always OnlyFans, Phillips. Yeah. All right, Larry Bird, you like football? All right, Red Brick, that takes finding people that can take over your business. That can be tough times sometimes. Click their name and block them. I'll do it. I mean, if it gets to the point that it's just like it's just destroying the comment section, then I will. But, all right, do you pay them well, or what does it take to get them from sticking with you and not essentially your business? Oh, you guys are talking there. Okay. I have a tendency to explore the suggested mentality, kind of like playing dress up role play. You got what you put in, and people get what they deserve. Kid Rock. All right. If you and your wife have common interests such as organic farming and are thinking about starting a business together, like setting up gardens for people, but you two bump heads, would you pursue it? Um, Probably not. No. Like, my wife and I mean, we bump heads, occasionally when we're, doing discussions and stuff like that about, like, we may have different opinions about things, but when it comes to like a decision that I want to push forward with, there's like, there's no like, there's no just like arguing about it. Like, it's just like, we got to do this and we're going to do it together and we're going to push forward on this thing. Right. And it has to move together. Like, it has to be symbiotic. Like, you both have to do it together. Because if you have shared disagreeing energies moving into it, then it probably won't work. Right. And so, unfortunately, like, you might love that person very much, but if they're not on board to go and move forward with you, right, then it's like, you can have all the greatest ideas in the world, but they're probably not going to be successful at that point. And that's just what it comes down to. So, it's more important to have somebody who is going to be on board with it the entire way, saying, yeah, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's do it fully. And that's hard to find somebody who's bumping heads when you're bumping heads with. Larry, vote for UE. Right on, Larry. Thanks. Um, I'm not a people person, Red Brick. I have a hard time finding good helpers, let alone good managers. This is what's funny. It's like I see Phillips popped up mom's car a couple of times here. See, this is like that's just the attempt there. It's funny. All right. Let's see here. I work USPS 4 months in 1865 an hour. My neighbor's welfare gets more weekly versus myself. I'm busting my butt. UPS is trash. 3 more weeks and I'm out. Laziness and bad people work at the plant. UE lives rent free in Phillips thinking meat. I do believe that automobile was a gift. It was mom's car. Actually, come to think of it, it was. It was mom's car. You're right, old Niner. I did get it. My parents gave me the vehicle. Oh, by the way, I'm selling the Corolla. I'm getting rid of the original Toyota Corolla there that I drove around. Um, a friend of mine, her daughter's in need of it, so I was hoping that I would find a worthy person who could use it. And I told her it is not much of a vehicle, and she goes, she needs to get from work to home, back to work, and it's not that far of a drive, but it's too far to walk, so she needs a vehicle. And I'm thinking, perfect, right? Because if it breaks down, it's not going to actually destroy her life. It'll just inconvenience her for the moment, but it is a vehicle that should get her back and forth to work for a while, and I feel good about being able to offer it up. All right. I paid all my bills and my student loan and property taxes in 2 states. The audacity at 14 an hour and causes me $16 through the drive-through. Wife or whoever have to have a grand unified vision. You have to speak it for it to come to light, and takes a lot of trust and work through hard times. Absolutely, Red Brick. And that's just the problem that I think I ended up like seeing with a lot of people out there, is that although everybody has a great idea on what it is that they want for the future, what they feel that they want for themselves in their life, as they start working through that, they end up growing away from each other. Like, excuse me. Instead of growing like together, they end up becoming successful and end up kind of growing apart, right? They find that, maybe the boringness of the day-to-day living that doesn't really have any kind of real adventure or excitement to it, then finds the appeal. Like they look for like, that new experience out there that they just don't find having doing the same thing for 20 years, right? And this is like where I think a lot of people end up finding themselves after they have built something up together, is that it didn't work for them, right? Because the two of them really kind of had different ideas of what it is that they were looking for at the end of this road. And as they got closer to the end of the road, they realized, man, we are not doing this together, are we? And then they end up divorcing or separating or breaking up or, whatever. And that's like a lot of people, right? A lot of people end up going through something like that. And, with my wife and I, we went through a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, we've been together since we were 18 years old, and 30 years now. And so we've experienced a lot of stuff. We've, been successful at times where we were both earning, a decent amount of money and, being able to make our bills okay. And then we fell into hard times. We later on had kids, so like we were together for a very long time before we had kids. Then we had kids, and that was like, also a difficult time for us to try and work through. And so now we're getting to a point in our lives is which that we have experienced a lot of stuff together. Like there was times in our life that, man, maybe we shouldn't be together, right? It was getting very close to the point that it was just like, this is not the way that this should be going down. and you work through that part of things. Well, after you get through that, now you're kind of more on board, right? To say, hey, we've been through a situation in which that wasn't going to work. Now we're in a situation that does work, right? So we remember how bad it used to be. Speaking of which, I was talking about you, Mama.
Hey,
Hi.
I got an appointment in an hour for haircut.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll call this close then.
Okay.
All right, love you.
Love you.
All right. Finally, no, you don't have to find one outside the USA. Exactly. My wife and I worked together for over 10 years running a business, and it brought us closer together. Awesome, man. Yeah, and it can, right? I mean, if you're working towards the same goals and, believe, have that same belief of that future existence, I work 7:30 to 3:30. I make $95,000. I have no debt, $250,000 in saving, $175,000 of it is in gold and silver, and I save $36,000 after taxes every month, and I am not feeling any inequality. Well, of course not, Steve. You're kicking ass, man. Yeah, okay. That's a great deal, bro. I mean, you're in a good position. Most people who are working making $40,000 a year, that's not the life that they're experiencing. All right. If you started your own construction related business, what would it be? Are you talking me personally, like for the environment in the area that I'm in? I personally would start up a handyman service in my area. There is so many people who have moved to our location who are retired, remote workers, hospital district type workers, because we have a huge hospital district. I keep mentioning that, but it's growing big. In fact, there's a huge new medical facility that's being built right across the street from where I work. So with that being the environment that we're in, there is very few people who can just go and do some very simple handyman tasks, painting a room or, fixing some trim, replacing a light fixture, something of that nature. Very small little tasks that a lot of people are just not experienced, don't know how to do it, or just don't even want to. Like I knew a couple, I don't know, this couple had come into the store that I work at, and they were looking for somebody to change the smoke detector battery. They were willing to pay $50 to have somebody go out there and literally switch this battery out because they had these really high ceilings. The smoke detector was way up there. They're old, nervous about climbing up on ladders. If one of them falls, it could be, life-threatening kind of fall. And it was beeping, and it's been beeping and bothering them for days now, and they were willing to pay a high price just to get this damn beeper to stop. And so when I think about what kind of business I would start, that's the one that I would start because I see a need for it. Now, somebody else might be in an area where it's just man, I see all kinds of new construction taking place. Well, you have new construction, then you're going to have opportunity to start businesses within that may not even have to do with the construction part of things. You know how many people have businesses where they do construction cleanup? Literally go through the house and do all the vacuuming and clean the windows up real good and pick up every little piece of dust that's on out of the entire job site, both inside and out, and just clean it all up. There's people who have jobs just doing that, right? Doing construction cleanup. So there's all kinds of jobs. You just need to see where the need is and what it is that you can do to fill that need. I am terrible handyman. No one should ever let me in their home or investment property. I disagree with that all-nighter. All-nighter wondered, he was over at my house and he was looking around at all the little shit that needed to be fixed. I could just see it in him. He didn't say much. I could just see him. He was sitting there looking at stuff, in fact, it was I remember he was looking at the gutter on the back of the house at one point, and I remember him doing that, and I went and got some gutter screws and fixed the gutter. After I saw him looking at it. All right, what do you do with the man that can't do anything, that doesn't cook, doesn't clean, can't work on the cars, can't do house maintenance, doesn't do anything but criticize you, should be so lucky? Me. So I have like, okay, a man that can't do anything, doesn't cook, doesn't clean, can't work on the cars, can't do house maintenance, doesn't do anything. Because so does he have a job? I mean, does he bring in the bills? I mean, bring in the pay for the bills? I mean, if he's not doing that, then what's going on here, man? I'm not sure what's up, right? Now, it's one thing to not be able to work on the cars or the house or to do the cleaning. Like, you don't want to do any of those things. Hey, that's like nobody really wants to do any of that stuff. Like, I mean, I guess there's some people who like to do maintenance on house, like all-nighter. Right? But, if you're not into those things or don't have the skills to do them, you have to have the ability to at least be able to get those things done. Meaning that you have to go out there and earn the money to pay somebody to do it. Like if you can't do it yourself, then you have to figure out the ability to get it done. And so if that's what if you're talking about a man, then he has that ability to do it, then you can't blame him for being lazy to not want to work on the car. He can go out and earn the money to pay somebody to work on the car, right? So that's not being lazy. Right? That's being, very resourceful. So again, does he, I mean, are you just saying because he can't do this, he's not a capable person or something like that? Like, there's a lot of circumstances that can lead up to it. I honestly don't do nearly as much on the house, like around the, cleaning up around the house and laundry and dishes and stuff like that. My wife and the kids, they do a lot of that stuff. Right? But I try and go out there and earn a bunch of money so that they can have the things in their life that they want to enjoy, to be able to do the sporting events or to be able to, have some of the things in their life that they are looking for. Like I try to provide them with comfort and convenience and, full fridge and all the other stuff out there. I don't put that burden on my wife or kids to say, hey, I got bills to pay. And they don't, I never bring up the bills to them ever. Like they don't know about in fact, I don't even know if they know how many bills we have because that's not for them to worry about. Like I've taken that burden away from them, right? And so again, it's like how do you structure your life? I mean, everybody has their responsibilities, their expectations out of who it is that they have in their life and what it is that they expect out of you and what it is that you are going to promise them. I mean, this is the way life works. All right, Simon, would you get scolded for doing the dishes and taking dishes opportunity to film a video? Absolutely not. I would never get scolded for that. If those dishes were done, she would not be complaining about that one little bit. All right. I hope the wife knows about the bills. She knows they exist, right? See, that's what's like. Here's the thing. I don't want new cars in my life. She wanted the newer car, right? She pays for the newer car. She earns the money to make the car payment on it. I pay the insurance, right? I make sure that the car is insured, but she makes the car payment. And when she wasn't working, like during the summer, because she's a teacher's assistant, during the summer when she wasn't working, I did make some of the car payments. But for the most part, when she's working, she makes the payments on it. Right now, she doesn't have to work. Right? Like if she didn't want to work, we could make this happen. And I told her, if you don't want to, that's cool. Right? But we're not going to have nearly as much in our life if you don't. So she was just like, okay, well, I like this job of teacher's assistant and I like her having the job because, now she has her vehicle that she wants to drive around and she has spending money that, I don't tell her how she, supposed to spend that money. It's up to her. That's, what she makes. I take care of the bills, no problem. Like this works. This totally works. Housekeepers get paid $50 an hour. I'm just not the right shade of cinnamon in my case. It's a privilege. All right, Larry, we have a bumper sticker that reads, give a man a fish and he eats, teach a man to fish and he starves. Some sums up commercial fishing really well. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? So about that court-ordered restitution and problem isn't working the problem, it's getting people to pay you. Alrighty, guys, I gotta go get my hair cut. It was fun hanging out with you and talking all this stuff. Talking about inequality and how to keep yourself from being on the bottom side of the wedge. What it is that you need to do in your life to figure out how it is that you earn more money, how it is that you lower your expenses, and how it is that you be useful and useful to this world in a way that is valuable with no expectations of any kind of outcome from it. And by doing that, you'll actually find yourself being rewarded. It's kind of crazy. All right. $5 from Don't Kill Me, Just a Vibe. Hey, thanks for being here. My 15-year-old son pays $300 a month for rent using his Pizza Hut check, but invested into long-term investment account for him. Yeah, good for you. See, now that's the way to go about it, is if you have the ability to do that, then I would say that is an awesome way to go. I let Freddie, I show Freddie things like compounding interest calculator. And I was like, Freddie, let me show you, man. If you put $50 right now into this, how much would it be worth in 50 years if you were to put it at a 10% interest rate, something of that nature? And his eyes just like blow out of he's like, wow, Dad, look at how much this is, And I was just like, right. So every time you buy baseball cards, every time you do something and not put that money away, this is what's going on, All right. Yesterday I began the long and arduous journey of tackling my hoarder room. It's a mess, but needs to be done. Well, good for you, Magic Man. You get in there and start with just a piece at a time, man. I mean, I'm sure it's probably cluttered with, this an insane amount of stuff. I know I had a basement one time that was the results of a problem that I had. When somebody says it's free, I would just take it. Like, free was a dangerous word around me. And so clearing that mess out, even though you see all this valuable stuff, right? Clearing that stuff out clears out your energy field. Like, you feel so much better having let it go. You hold on to these things thinking, no, man, I'm going to use it. It's going to be useful in my life at some point in the future, and I can't give it up now. And if I did, I'd be giving up something of value, right? And that what you are doing is holding on to some energy. You're holding on to something that isn't really valuable, right? I mean, the potential for value is there, but unless you're doing something with it, there's no value, and you're holding on to it, and that's energy that's being emitted out of you. Once you let it go, man, you clear out that energy field, you feel so much better, and all of a sudden better things, you start thinking and doing better things. All right. Good on you, Magic. Later, gang. Thanks, Simon. Well, thank you, Bad Dog Bobby. I appreciate everybody being here. I have to go get my hair cut, so maybe we'll come back later on. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you, everybody, for hitting that like button. We got 166 people watching with 233 likes. Love it when I see that many likes when I have such a group of people coming in. So thank you. Uneducated Economist, let me know.